The Carolina Hurricanes get 3 third-period goals and win Game 1 by a 5-2 score.
Yeah, I mean, we came in and we had a lot of guys that have made cases for themselves to play, and obviously the group tonight didn't get it done. So, we have some guys that are not in the lineup that we know are ready to play and can really contribute. So that's all part of the process. We came into Game 1. We did some good things, 2-2 tie game going in the third period. We didn't find a way to win it. So now we'll just go right through the evaluation process on the game, on our lineup, evaluate the players tonight, and go from there.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. Stillman Company, delivered by TriStar Moving. We're going to evaluate today as the Predators lose game number 1 last night to the Carolina Hurricanes. Caroline Fenton is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how are you?
Let's get going. I want to start with this. Last night, I watched like everybody else did. I'm sitting there, and I see the Predators score first, and I start to get a little excited. And that was a beautiful goal from Philip Forsberg. And it was a back-and-forth game. The Canes got a bounce on. The first goal was, I don't want to say a lucky bounce, but it was a lucky bounce. And that's going to happen. And the bounces are going to even, and you're going to get some bounces, and they're going to get some bounces. And they got a bounce. Then they had a great goal by Jordan Stahl for their second goal. I thought Eric Halla had a nice goal off the Matt Duchene assist. It's 2-2. Now, I didn't like how the Predators played in the second period. If it was a boxing match last night, you would have had the Predators win round 1, the Hurricanes decisively win round 2, but it's tied 2-2 going to the third period. And that's where I want to start. Because here's the thing about pulling off upsets. We've watched enough NCAA tournament games to know that very rarely is the upset easy. Very rarely when you take down the number 1 seed, is it, oh, we went in there and we were up by 10 5 minutes into the basketball game, and then all of a sudden we were up by 20 and we won the game by 25. That doesn't normally happen. Normally, just like all sports, it's a game of runs. You go on your run, you go up 1-0. They get their lucky bounce, they get their crowd energized. Now it's 1-1. The Predators did not play well in the second period. I was very disappointed by that after what I thought was a very good first period. But they go into the third period, and I had this approach, and I was hopeful the team would have the same approach, and they did not, which was, it's 2-2. We know Carolina's good. We know they're coming. We know you're going to get their best shot in the third period. The Predators just have to find a way, get one goal, turn it over to Saros, and play great defense. And they couldn't do it. And not only could they not do it, they didn't even come close. They were not competitive in that third period in the Carolina end. And in their own end, they were sloppy. They were lazy. They turned over the puck. They didn't have their head on a swivel. They didn't attack the puck handler. They didn't keep guys out of the slot area in front of Saros. Everything that would be a recipe for disaster for them to lose this game, they did in the third period. They did not play a good third period. With everything on the table last night, they didn't play well. Now, let me say this. Losing game 1 on the road in a best-of-7 is not the end of the world, in spite of the fact that stats will tell you over time the Predators are just horrific when it comes to winning a playoff series if they don't win the first game. In fact, they've never have. But in normal terms, losing game 1 on the road is not the end of the world. You just got to take the second game and steal your game and then protect your home ice, and there you go. It makes no difference. In 2017, the Predators won game 1 in Chicago. They won game 2 in Chicago. It's not going to be that easy. But in St. Louis and Anaheim, they won game 1. They lost game 2. Win game 2 against Carolina, you just flip the script. It's fine. But the issue, though, is that everything that we were worried about happened last night. In the third period, the Carolina Hurricanes flexed their muscle. They're faster than the Predators. They're more skilled than the Predators. They are bigger than the Predators. They are stronger than the Predators. They out-hit the Predators last night, 56-49, -7, something we said absolutely could not happen. They were the better team, and especially in the third period when the going got tough. And I said this about the Titans. when they went to Green Bay and they lost against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers on Sunday Night Football. And I came on the air and I said, that's a pretender, not a contender. When I look at the Predators last night, I see a team that is simply just not good enough to compete with the big boys. Because what more can you ask for? Tied 2-2, going to the third period. I thought Saros was fantastic last night, and I thought he had played really well up until that third period. Again, the 2 goals against him, one was a fluky bounce off of the stick in front of Ryan Ellis, boxed out. It goes with. Saros couldn't do anything on that one. The second one was an incredible shot, I thought, by Jordan Stahl. Saros couldn't do anything on that one. Saros had played well. 2-2. I said this on Twitter last night, and I stand by it. I would have settled for that out of court at any point during the radio show yesterday. If you had called in and you had said, I want it to be 2-2, going to the third period, and Saros is playing well, I would have accepted that at any point last night. But that's when the going got tough. Because, again, you knew Carolina, with that crowd, you knew they were going to play their best game. And the Predators simply couldn't match it. And not only could the Predators not match it, it were some of the guys that we're told are the good players on the Predators that couldn't match it. Ryan Ellis couldn't match it last night. Ryan Johansson, after having what I thought was a pretty strong first period, couldn't match it last night. Roman Josi, -3. Mikhail Granlund, -3. These are supposed to be the good players. These are the guys that they prop up in front of us every year and say, hey, we've got Ryan Ellis. Do you? Okay, well, they have Teravainen. They have Aho. They have Niederreiter. They have Jordan Stahl. They have Trocheck. They've got good players. They've got a squad. Where are your good players? So the truth is, the Predators have 2 choices here. And we'll get to the coach in a second because I didn't think he coached a very good game. But the Predators have 2 choices here. They can either stand up to it and they can play better and they can play like their contracts say they should be able to play, or they're a pretender. And everything that I worried about the entire run in which they turned this thing around will come to fruition, which was you're good enough to beat the Dallas Stars and the Chicago Blackhawks, but are you good enough to do anything else? This season, the Predators were so bad at one point that none of us had any hope, and we felt the only way to get things right was to blow up the roster. Then all of a sudden, they started playing better, and a lot of us who said blow up the roster, make changes, fire people, here, I just want to see. I just want to see if these young guys can play. I just want to see if Saros can be a starting goalie. I just want to see if John Hines can coach. And I said, I want to see if these core players are really worth it. And last night, Arvidsson, Ellis, Johansson, Josi, where were they? They didn't play well. With the stakes being the highest and the opportunity being the greatest. So right now, the Nashville Predators are, to me, a pretender until they decide to turn it around and go out. And maybe if they play this way in game 2, then we can say, okay, they're a contender. If they can take the first punch from Carolina and they can punch back tomorrow night, then okay, maybe they're a contender, but they've got to play better. Last night's effort was not good enough. Last night, Carolina proved they're a better club. They showed it from top to bottom. The only thing, and we said this coming into the series, but the only thing where the Predators are clearly better, in my opinion, than Carolina is goaltending. Because Nedeljkovic, he gave up all these opportunities and rebounds, and the Predators couldn't do anything about it. Saros makes an excellent save. Puck goes behind the net. 3 guys can't clear it. The other 2 guys are just standing there watching and doing nothing, and they set it up right in front of the net for a goal. There's nothing their goalie can do about that. So, again, you guys going to be contenders or pretenders? Because I thought all along when I said sell at the trade deadline, I said this team looks like pretenders. And it felt like, hey, they're better than Dallas. Congratulations, you're 4th place. Do they make a 4th place trophy? I don't think so. So it's time for the Predators, for that group, for this core, for all those guys that for years have had their face plastered on Bridgestone Arena at the top of the most iconic district in the entire city. Those guys have had their pictures on it, and everybody has said, hey, these are our guys. These are the guys we're paying the money to. Well, go do something, because this is your opportunity. John Hines defended the lineup, and we'll get to that. John Hines defended the lineup last night. And even today, kind of just saying over and over again that the guys that are always going to be in the lineup need to play better. And he's right. He's right. It's time for Ellis and Johansson and even Duchesne, who I don't want to pile on because I think a lot of people are getting on Duchesne. I thought Duchesne played okay. But it's time for Ellis and Johansson and Duchesne and Yossi and Granlund and Forsberg and all these guys that everybody just keeps propping up. Prop. It's time for them to play like it. It's time for them to, if I could borrow a phrase from myself, pay what they owe. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. What's your reaction? 615-737-1025. The second part of my opening rant, the coach. So I like John Hines. And I've said, John Hines proved this year he can coach. Now, I said he didn't prove he was Scotty Bowman. He didn't prove he can win a cup. But he proved to me that he can coach. We'll get into his lineup decisions and everything else. But I really thought last night I was disappointed with John Hines. And it wasn't so much so the fact that John Hines had a plan and it clearly didn't work. Because it didn't. Again, they wanted to go in there and they wanted to punch Carolina in the mouth. And you knew it right away when Callie Yarncroke, who is not a crusher, turns around and just lights the guy up. The Predators got lucky. I didn't think it was embellishment. Now, Twitter got mad at me. Of course it's embellishment, Jared. No, I didn't think it was. It ended up being 2 penalties. But when Callie Yarncroke, 20 seconds into the game, is lighting somebody up, that tells you the motive was go knock everybody out. They got out-hit by 7 by Carolina. It didn't work. The idea of putting Matthew Olivier and Ben Harper on the ice, and you're going to go toe-to-toe with that team, with Sebastian Aho, with Dougie Hamilton. You're going to go toe-to-toe with that team, I think is a little crazy. And I said on Friday I disagreed with the decision. But I was kind of disappointed that I felt like Hines didn't really have a backup plan last night. Like, that was the plan. We're going to go in there and rough them up. Well, I don't know if you noticed after the first period, Carolina caught on to that. They adjusted. That's what good teams, that's what good coaches do. What was the backup plan last night? Was there a backup plan last night? Depth. And I don't mean depth in your roster, although that is important. Depth in your ability. You walk in with a game plan, you get punched in the mouth, you better have a backup. Carolina did. The Predators and Hines didn't last night, and I didn't like that. And I think Hines did a nice job turning this thing around, but he's going to have to step his game up if he's going to go toe-to-toe with Rod Brind'Amour. We can criticize the players all we want and say, hey, Yossi's got to play at the same level that Teravainen and Aho and those guys are playing at. Well, guess what? Hines has got to coach at the same level as Rod Brind'Amour if he wants to win this series, because Rod Brind'Amour is a good coach, and again, last night, he showed it. 615-737-1025. We'll get to the calls first, so bring it on. 615-737-1025. Calls and text. Caroline, we'll get your reaction. Ian, we'll get your reaction to game number 1 last night. Again, I'm not panicking. I am not panicking. Now, again, I picked Carolina to win the series, so I don't know if that's unfair, but I'm not panicking. You lose game 1, it happens. You got to win game 2. But I told you all yesterday that I thought Predators had a 20% chance to win the series. You lose game 1, it doesn't affect it. Now you lose game 2, we got a different discussion. But it's not the end of the world to lose game 1. But the how, it's got to change. I'm tired of watching Ryan Ellis. I'm tired of watching Ryan Johansson. I'm tired of watching all these guys that every year they tell me how great these guys are, and analytics says this guy's good, and I'm tired of watching them get beat in the playoffs. Because if you don't step it up, it'll be the exact same as Arizona, it'll be the exact same as Dallas, and it'll be the exact same as Winnipeg. 615-737-1025. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. Stillman Company. It's ESPN 1025, The Game.
Forsberg comes out by the left point, backhands it down low. Johansson checked by Hamilton. Now the puck to Forsberg, coming in front, he scores! Philip Forsberg with the pass from down off the end board, and the Predators strike first in this first-round game.
There you go. That was the biggest highlight. I mean, they scored. They got up 1-0, and I thought, could it be? Could it be? Could it be last night? And again, as I said, Caroline Fenton, I would have out of court settled for 2-2 going to the third period last night, and Carolina just spanked the Predators in the third period. What was your reaction last night?
I mean, yeah, going into the third period, I thought the Predators were in a really good spot. Tie game. They looked pretty good. And yesterday I said that I needed to see the Predators kind of like go back a little bit, but come back big and continue that physicality and continue that fast play through 60 minutes. And that's not what happened. In the third period, they looked entirely too gassed. Carolina was very much so the most dominant team in the third period, and that's ultimately what cost them the game. So that inability to adjust in the middle of the game. Yep. And, I thought, going into the third period, I thought surely the Predators know what they have to do in this third period to take the lead. Mm-hmm. The Hurricanes did that. The Predators did not. The Hurricanes stepped their game up in the third period, and the Predators took a step back.
So John Hines last night, and Ian, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but John Hines last night consistently kept talking in his post-game press conference about the fact that, hey, it was 2-2 after the second period, especially when he was asked about his lineup and the decisions. And I'll say this, to your point about the adjustments, I thought Brenda Moore loved what John Hines did with his lineup.
I'm sure he did.
This is, John Smoltz said one time on a baseball broadcast, you never want to do something that makes the other team happy. And I do think early on the Predators tried to set the tone. There were some hits. It was a chippy game early on. It was a sloppy, slow, sluggish kind of first period and a half. And then I think the Carolina Hurricanes just realized, we're too fast for these guys. Because when you take out talented players and you put in less talented players that'll muck it up, which is what John Hines did. When you put in Olivier, just think about this. Matthew Olivier is an undrafted free agent who is kind of a Milwaukee-ish kind of guy. Same with Tanner Jeannot, those kind of players. Fourth line guys, essentially. Eric Goodbranson is a journeyman, slow, sluggish defenseman that's been traded about 15 times. Ben Harper could not even crack the Predators lineup until literally everybody was hurt. And you're taking out Ellie Tolvanen, your first-round pick in 2017, and you're taking Dante Fabro, your first-round pick in 2016, out. At one point, the Predators believed so much in Dante Fabro after a handful of games at the NHL level, including in the playoffs, which they had no problem rushing him in there with no experience, that they traded away PK Subban, one of the most talented players in the history of the team. They traded away PK Subban because they felt comfortable about elevating Fabro up to a second pair. And John Hines, because he wanted to go in there and he wanted to show it to the Hurricanes, we're going to punch him in the mouth. He took first-round pick talents out and replaced them with guys who suck. Like Ben Harper sucks. And at what point, again, I understood what he was doing because we talked about it, Caroline, did we not, on Friday? I opened the show saying I disagree with this decision. I disagreed with it. And I do think Hines can keep pointing to it was 2-2 going to that third period. It was 2-2. Ian, if you got a clip for me of Hines last night, asked about the lineup change. Here's what John Hines said, and this pretty much summed up his entire press conference last night. Take a listen.
So, guys, look, we came in as 2-2 going in the third period, and you have to make lineup decisions. Back to Jared's question, we were physical. It was hard. It was a hard-fought game. It's 2-2 going in the third period, and, you look at a couple of goals, they're breakdowns in the goals. One of them's the turnover. They come back in. It's a D-zone coverage goal. So I think when you look at those situations, it's we can talk all about the lineup we want, but we played physical, we played hard. It was a competitive game, and we didn't find a way to win one. So as we've said, we're going to be able to make lineup decisions that we want. But as we've gone all year long, it hasn't been who's in or who's out. It's how we've played.
And here's where I disagree. I mean, again, I'm not saying you lost the game because Ellie Tolvanen was out, or I'm not saying that's why you lost the game. I'm just saying that I find it to be ridiculous or not ridiculous. I shouldn't say that. I do think that those lineup decisions did hurt their chance of winning, and eventually Carolina figured it out and said, we're just going to skate past these guys. I mean, when Aho went past Ben Harper last night, he never had a prayer of catching up. And that, to me, is kind of biggest issue here, is that the Predators, it's like guys, the Predators don't ever take responsibility. The players that don't play well don't take responsibility, and the Hines is sitting here saying, hey, it was 2-2, it was 2-2. And I'm like, dude, like you rolled the dice and you lost.
And the justification that John Hines made for taking Dante Fabro out and putting Ben Harper and Erica Branson in was, he said, I think Dante Fabro needs to be quicker. Ben Harper and Erica Branson are quicker than Dante Fabro? I thought that was just like a little bit of a silly justification, because I think we all knew what he was doing there. You're putting in your two beefy guys.
Sure.
And he said on numerous occasions, we're going to be physical, we're going to be tough. And so that just kind of made sense. You put two really big physical guys in. So I just think the justification that Dante Fabro wasn't quick enough didn't really make sense based on who he put in last night.
What I need Hines to not do, though, is that tone, it was 2-2. It was 2-2 going into the third period.
Doesn't matter what the score was going into the third period.
But see, that tone came off as, it's not my fault. Like everyone looks at the coach, and he is right. And he doubled down on it today. I mean, he really talked at length today about the idea that, hey, the players that make the money need to start playing better, and he's right. But, again, I look at that as he kept bringing that up 2-2. First of all, the Preds were awful in the second period. I mean, the second period may have been worse than the third period.
I don't know. Third period is bad.
I think the second period is pretty terrible. I mean, the second period, they didn't even.
Only five shots. Preds only had 5 shots in the second.
They got out-slugged in the second period. The third period, they were tired, and they still stunk it up. But I just felt that there was a lot of, it's not my fault coming from the coach last night when he kept saying, it was 2-2 after 2. That bothered me. Let's go to your phones. Your reaction, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nick is calling from Toronto and is going to kick us off. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, Jared. I agree with you that it was too much of an emphasis on toughness. Olivier didn't need to dress, and one of Goodbranson or Harper didn't need to dress. Maybe you need one of them for some toughness. I also think that the Predators would be smart to separate Ellis and Yossi. They somehow don't work as well together as regular pairing. Benning played really well with Yossi during their turnaround, and I'd look at trying that. The other thing I'd like to say is, up front, it's not mentioned at all that Jakob Trenin is really good at puck retrieval, and I think he'd be good to use on the power play. They don't have anybody to go and get a puck. That's why they never get control in the offensive zone.
I mean, Nick, I appreciate your call. I'll put anybody in the power play at this point. I mean, the power play sucks. It sucks.
It's so bad.
It's rotten. I mean, this is going back to the Tolvanen thing. And as I said, I told you guys for multiple reasons on Friday how much I disagreed with the idea of benching Tolvanen and Fabro. That is not, Caroline, back me up on this. That is not
That's nothing new.
That's not a second guess.
No.
That was a first guess, and I said I disagree with it. That power play sucks. And if you're going to beat a team like that, you're going to have to score on the power play. And that power play is, I mean, it's as bad as that 2019 series against Dallas when they went 0 of 15. I mean, that power play is a mess. If you want to put 3 defensemen on the power play, I'd be okay with anything. And I'm kidding. I would not be okay with that. But like, I'm at that point where it's like, goodness gracious. The breaking up of Yossi and Ellis, I agree with, and I agree with it more so than just they play better when they're separated. It's that I don't think Ryan Ellis is all that good. I think Ryan Ellis, when the going gets tough, he gets going. Like, he gets run out in these tough games. He got run out by Dallas. He got run out by Winnipeg. And he's getting run out by the big bodies of Carolina. And the Predators keep trying to sell me, it feels like, on the idea that the little guys can muster up their toughness in the playoffs. And Arvidsson and Ellis, and honestly, those guys never do anything in the playoffs. So why should I get excited about what they could do in the playoffs? So I'd break up that first pair of Yossi and Ellis, which I think Hines is going to do because I think he hinted at it. But I would do it just because I want to limit Ellis's ice time, and I want to limit the matchups. I don't want him going up against their first or second line. Now, I'm not saying put him on the third pair, but I would separate them. That's just me. 615-737-1025. More of your reaction to game number 1. And do we think John Hines screwed up with the lineups? Do you think it? And this is whatever you guys can say can be a total second guess. I don't think I have to back anything up. I was staunchly against taking Tolvanen and Fabro out of the lineup. What do you think? We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, Stillman Company. By the way, we will be giving away Kings of Leon tickets later today. I know a lot of people want to go to concerts. Kings of Leon, we got them. So we'll be giving away those tickets later today. And tomorrow, if you're trying to figure out where you want to see the game tomorrow, we will be broadcasting live at the new Party Foul location in Cool Springs, 1914 Galleria Boulevard from 2 to 6, with your chance to win a pair of tickets for Game 4. And what they want is everybody who doesn't know where they're going to watch the game for tomorrow night, they want everybody to come on out to Party Foul in Cool Springs. They brand new location. They want everybody out watching the game, and they will draw a winner at the I believe, let me make sure I get this right. They will be drawing a winner tomorrow night during the second period. You must be present to win. But again, if you're trying to figure out where to watch the game, if maybe you were at home watching it by yourself and you're like, I don't want to do this. I want to go out. Preds fans, they're going to pack it with gold tomorrow at Party Foul, so be sure to join that. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Hi, John. All the second-guessing lineup decisions aside, should we expect lineup changes for the next game? Would you anticipate that?
Well, let's see. We got to evaluate the game and evaluate our players and then continue to move forward from here.
There you go. That was John Hines. Last night, John Hines was not having any of the questioning about the lineup. We played the clip in the last segment where he just kept saying, guys, it's 2-2. It was 2-2 after 2. It's not about the lineup. And then today, he doubled down on that a lot, kind of pointing the finger at the guys who are always going to be in the lineup. And I'm not going to name names here, but Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson, Duchesne, Granlund, Haula, Cunnin, Jeannot, Trennan, Sissons. Am I leaving anybody else out? I mean, I just went with the forwards there, so I didn't go with any defensemen. But you get the gist that he's saying it's about them. And I actually agree. Because remember yesterday, I think we were talking about lineups, Caroline, and I said to a caller, look, it's not going to be about Matthew Olivier. It's going to be about Saros and Yossi and Forsberg and Johansson and Duchesne, and it is about that. It's about those guys, and it's about Aho and Teravainen and Trocheck and Svechnikov and Stahl and Dougie Hamilton, and that's what this is about. That's what the series is about. That's what every series is about. The Winnipeg series in 2018, it was about Pekka Rinne not playing very well and Dustin Byfuglien and Blake Wheeler doing whatever they wanted to for the Jets. That's what it will all come down to. But do you think Hines' lineup decisions last night hurt the team? Do you think, because I think Hines is trying to paint this in his head as kind of a black versus white issue, which is that we were tied 2-2, the lineup was doing fine, and the Johanssons didn't play well, and that's why we lost. Don't blame me for the lineup. When I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I don't think that they lost because he put Olivier and Harper and Goodbranson in the lineup. But I don't think it hurt. And I think the line of thinking, which again, I told you all on Friday, I disagree with. I think the line of thinking was very odd. That I'm going to play an incredibly talented team that's big, strong, fast, physical, and really good. And I'm going to take first-round picks off the ice. Dante Fabro, first-round pick 2016. Eeli Tolvanen, first-round pick 2017. And I mean, we're talking about talented guys. I don't love Fabro, but he's a talented guy. And I'm going to replace it with Ben Harper and Matthew Olivier? I mean, those are Milwaukee guys. So I'm trying to sit there, and I think it was perfectly illustrated last night when Sebastian Aho burned Ben Harper down the ice. Harper does nothing, doesn't stop him, impede his way, anything. It reminded me of the Titans playing Kansas City in the AFC Championship game when Patrick Mahomes would run around and Sammy Watkins would burn Tremaine Brock or Logan Ryan or whomever, and Mahomes would just uncork a rocket for a touchdown. And it reminded me of that. But the difference is we knew Tremaine Brock sucked. He was out there because the Titans didn't have any other choice. The Predators had other choices that we all knew. And so did the lineup change? I'm not going to say did it affect the game last night. Everything affects the game. But do you think that Hines should be off the hook for last night with the lineup because the other guys didn't play well?
See, I didn't agree with the lineup changes last night. I'm not going to sit here and say, if Eeli Tolvanen would have played, or if he wouldn't have broken up the herd line, then the Predators would have won. That's not realistic, and that's just kind of wishful thinking and doesn't really do anything for us. I didn't agree with the lineup changes, but the guys who were out there and that were playing that are normally in the lineup didn't do what they were supposed to do. Defensemen were slow. They were sluggish out there. I mean, that second line, 0 shots from that entire second line. Granlund, Yarncroke, Cunnin, 0 shots. Those are guys who play almost every single game. 0 shots. So I needed to see more effort on the ice from the guys, like you said, who normally start.
So you put no blame on Hines' shoulders.
I do, but because I didn't agree with it. I don't think that he should have done that, and I'm hoping that if he does decide to put Dante Fabro and Eeli Tolvanen out on the ice tonight or in future games, that
if he doesn't put them out tomorrow night, now I got problems.
Yes.
I mean, the experiment The game one experiment of we're going to go pop them in the mouth. We're going to go take it to them. That was an experiment and it didn't work. You got out hit last night. Probably not. But if those guys aren't back in the lineup tomorrow night, I got problems now. I mean, with Hines, it's like, was it malpractice to take talented guys off and put guys who stink on? I mean, because if I were to ask
he tried something, but it's how he responds to it.
It was taking guys who are, I mean, again, Fabro's got his issues. He's good half the time, he's bad half the time, and Tolvanen has not been the same since he got hurt. But it's taking guys who have talent off the ice and replacing them with guys who stink. Harper stinks, and we can sit here and say that it wasn't the lineup. That third goal, Ian, help me out here. What was Harper doing? What was Goodbranson doing? And I will ask too.
They were picking their noses in the middle of the ice. They weren't doing anything.
What was Johansson doing? And Johansson's probably the bigger story here because he makes $8 million and he's not coming out of the lineup. But I find it hard to believe that you can't attribute that third goal to having that crap pair out there as the third D pair.
I mean, it's hard to say. It was coming off of a rush. Saros made the good first initial save on Trocheck. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then the puck kind of goes back behind the net. And, at that point, it's kind of a retrieval kind of thing. And let's be honest, the Preds were giving up the slot opportunities pretty left and right at times last night. And I think that's one area that Carolina is really good at, going to those hard spots. They have some players that are bigger forwards like Stahl and Niederreiter who can get to that kind of area. And, it's hard to say if they just took their eyes off the puck or maybe they were puck watching and not watching behind them. There was just some bystanders on that play.
That was awful. And again, I mean, the question here is not, I don't think we should let John Hines off John Hines rolled the dice and he failed. I mean, he made a calculated gamble, one that I completely disagreed with on the front end. He made that gamble and it didn't work. And so, again, I don't think that that's what was the reason that they lost, but I certainly don't think it helped. And so I do, this idea that Hines should be totally guilt-free, I don't sit with. He's not driving the bus to the loss last night. He's on it, though. Like, he's on the list. He's not the list, but he's on it last night because they wanted to try something. This is that, 3 a.m. thinking, which is if they had played 2 days ago against the Florida Panthers or the Columbus Blue Jackets or whatever, had a day off and played the playoffs, like the normal season had gone. If that had happened, then they would have not made all of those drastic lineup changes. But this is when you have a week to think about it, and then you convince yourself, you know what? We'll catch him. We'll run a play where Ryan Tannehill goes to wide receiver, and Derrick Henry throws the ball down the field. And it's like, no. And that's exactly what I think he did by wanting that grit and physicality, and he wanted it in there. And again, you got out hit by 7. Not a good look. 615-737-1025. I see all your reaction, and we will get to it. 615-737-1025. Plus, AJ Malesko. Did you watch the Bally Sports broadcast last night?
I watched the NBC broadcast.
The NBC broadcast. AJ Malesko was... I thought she was pretty sharp with her criticism of the Predators. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on Stillman and Company. Listen to the game every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. It's the game's 1K payday presented by Kentucky Kingdom and Hurricane Bay. Listen for keywords at 9, noon, and 3. When you hear it, go to thegamenashville.com and enter the keyword for a shot at $1,000. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Hey, we've got chances for you guys to win tickets at Bridgestone Arena. And by the way, you know what they say about a series? It's never a series until the home team loses. So maybe the Predators can make it a series tomorrow night. But Thursday, we'll be broadcasting live at Social Furniture on Charlotte Avenue from 2 to 6 for a chance to win a pair of tickets to both games 3 and 4. And Friday, Darren, Donick, and Chase will be broadcasting live at Pete and Terry's at Bridgestone Arena from 10 to 2. And you can have a chance to win a pair of tickets to Game 4. So last night, I watched the CNBC broadcast. I thought A.J. Malesko was pretty sharp. We're talking about how much John Hines deserves in terms of criticism for Tolvanen and Fabro, and really how much does it matter? I thought Malesko was really as tough as she's going to get on Hines about leaving Tolvanen out of the lineup because she brought it up a bunch last night. I think Fabro not being in the lineup is the bigger story. I think it's the bigger deal. I think it's the bigger mistake. I think Fabro and Benning should have been in. I don't think that Branson or Harper should have been in.
I agree with that.
And I think that if we're going to hold John Hines accountable for the lineup decisions that he had kind of teased to us he was going to make, I think that's the one that we really have to hammer him on, is the third pair on defense. Because they had me longing for the days of Matt Irwin and Yannick Weber. It was bad out there last night. And I think the thing is like Harper stinks. I mean, he's
slow.
He's not good. He stinks. Like he's never been on the team. He's been in the organization. Ian, how long has he been in the organization for?
Who? What? I'm sorry.
Harper. How long has he been in the organization for? Like 2 years?
I would say I think he played in Milwaukee all of last year.
Yeah, it was like a minor league transaction to acquire a depth defenseman from Milwaukee. And then he's on the team, but they're never going to play him, and he's so buried, so far down. And then this year it's taxi squad, so it's different, and everybody gets hurt at one time, and now Harper's in there, and he played okay.
Yeah, they were winning some games with him in the lineup.
I think he got his first taste against Columbus, and they were okay. It was when it snowed. They were okay. I mean, he's just not a good player. Like, he's really, truly bad.
He's a big guy, which is helpful, you would think, in this kind of series, but they are not very good at handling the puck. And I do feel like for him being so big, he doesn't always play as physical as you would think he would.
He doesn't play big, and to Caroline's point, he's incredibly slow. And to your point, I mean, once Saros makes that great save on Trocheck last night, somebody's got to clean it up. It's a third pair defense. Chris Mason on the show yesterday said that Saros is going to make the first save. They've got to help him out. They didn't last night. Let's go to your text, 615-737-1025. Caroline Fenton on the text line. What do we have?
Taylor texted in and said, Eric Goodbranson has no business being on the ice. Tolvanen and Fabro have to be in the lineup. Size versus speed isn't going to work in this matchup. Hines overcoached on this one. I know it's game one, but what a terrible coaching plan.
So I'm going to agree with the texter that he overcoached. Mm-hmm. And I think where I'm bothered by it is not only did he overcoach, but he's not taking any responsibility for the overcoaching. You know, when Hines showed up, he talked a lot about accountability. And I have appreciated John Hines, and I do think he's a good coach. But he's talked about accountability a lot. And then last night, when a decision that he made blew up on him, he is not taking any accountability for it. I mean, he very much consistently, even today, kind of deflecting the blame off of the lineup or off of him and making it about the guys that are normally in there. And
it's not all the lineup's fault.
Right. He is right. Like, he is right to say that Johansson has to play better. He's right in saying that Arvidsson has to be something. He's right in looking at that second line. You brought up Granlund, Yarncroke, Cunnin. Where were they last night? He's not wrong about that. But at the same time, there was nothing of, you know, we tried something out. We played a physical game. We're going to take it back to the drawing board. We'll see where we go. Now, the real action as to whether or not you take accountability for it is, what do you do tomorrow night? And I do think Tolvanen's going back in there. Now, what he does on defense, I could see him putting Benning back out there. It's funny because I can't stand Benning, or I couldn't earlier in the season. Why Benning wasn't out there, I mean, that doesn't make – I just assumed Matt Benning would be out there.
If you want to talk about being a physical team, put Matt Benning out there.
Now, I'm not sure if Benning makes you more physical, but he just doesn't stink as much as the other guys do. So I think that's probably a bigger issue. But, yeah, I mean, I just think that there should be a little blame. If there's a blame pie, John deserves a slice. He doesn't deserve the whole thing, but he deserves a slice. What else we got?
One texter texted in and said the lack of a big boy forward hurt this team again. At one point, Matthias Ekholm led in shots on goal against a goalie who looked unsteady at times. When no one is available to at least provide dangerous scoring chances, possibilities of winning big games are slim.
You know, every now and then when we get on David Poile discussions, somebody will tweet in or call in or text in or whatever, and we'll bring up the fact that in 22 years, the Predators have never had a big boy forward. And it always gets discussed. And it's always surrounding Poile, the fact that for some reason, no matter how hard they try, none of these guys ever become top-flight scorers. And I think it's pretty valid. And when it keeps showing up is in the playoffs, when you are playing guys that have them. Like I was looking at Sebastian Aho. I believe he was drafted in 2015 with like the 26th pick in the draft. Why can't the Predators draft a Sebastian Aho? Why can't they draft that kind of player? Everybody else seems to draft them. Florida's draft, I mean, again, I don't know how everybody got everybody, but Florida's got Barkov, and Tampa Bay's got about 8 of them, and Carolina's got 4 of them, and Dallas has 3 of them, and Columbus has Patrick Laine, who is not a big boy forward yet. Like, why can't the Predators draft these guys? Like, why can't they? Why don't the Predators have any of these guys? I don't know. What's the answer to that? So it's funny because, you know, the day after game 1, they very much could win game 2. I mean, I think I'd probably be a little surprised if they did. But they could win game 2. And they could come back to Bridgestone Arena. And if they win game 2, everybody would be ecstatic on this show on Thursday, including me. But I think if they lose the series and the series goes the way it's playing out right now, I think the anger will turn to Poile, and it will be about the lack of a high-end big boy forward because they've tried everything. They've tried trading for it. They sent Seth Jones, a legitimate number 1 defenseman, and a guy that they drafted to be a number 1 defenseman, a guy that everybody knew when they traded him that he was going to be a number 1 defenseman. They traded Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson, trying to get a big boy forward. Johansson is very clearly not that. They shipped off PK Subban to clear up the money to be able to sign Matt Duchene, who I think, what was it, dead last night in time on ice, 5-on-5? Like, holy smokes. So they keep trying this big boy forward thing. And you got Arvidsson scoring 30 goals, so everybody gets excited about it. Then they realize he's too small to become a big-time contributor in the playoffs. That's not going to work. So what are you? You're a bunch of role players. And Philip Forsberg, who's a nice first-line winger, but he's not a big boy forward. That's what you are. And so I think that right now, you know, everyone's more focused on Hines and the coaching decision or the guys that didn't play well. But the Poile discussion, if they lose this series the way they lost last night's game, I think it will circle around that forward position in David Poile. And I wonder if the fans are going to let all those mistakes or all those misreads, if they're going to let it off the hook. And I don't know the answer to that. What else in the text line?
One texter texted in and said our front end is not playoff caliber as a group. Our number 1 line would be some of the playoff team's third line. No one is really saying it, but our number 1 line is one of the worst.
I was listening to Robbie and Rexro today talk about the Jofa line, and I
Jofa
thought
looked
about
good last
this.
night, I thought.
No, Johansson sucked after the first period, and that line can't really do anything if he doesn't play well. To me, this is it for the Jofa line. Like, this is their last crack at it. Because they were one of the best lines in the NHL for a couple of years, and either they got figured out, or they got hurt, or they got lazy. And I don't know what it is. But the Jofa line has not had any pop. Again, look at their first line last night. That's a group that's got pop. The Jofa line didn't have anything last night outside of that first period where they held their own, which is what you would hope a first line would do. You would probably expect more than holding your own. I get worked up because I think that oftentimes, like, people let that off the hook. That level of talent shouldn't be your first line in a playoff series. Shouldn't. You should have better players. And right now, I mean, again, maybe they'll play better and they'll win the series, and, you know, everybody will go back to praising the roster construction and coaching and everything else. But I certainly think when you put them up against the big boys, when you put them up against Blake Wheeler and the Winnipeg Jets, when you put them up against Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin in Dallas, when you put them up against Aho and Trocheck and Teravainen and Niederreiter and Svechnikov and all those guys, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Jordan Stahl, I think it's pretty obvious you don't match up in the talent department. I mean, just look at the other game. Look at the other game that was on the same time your game was. The Washington Capitals have Alexander Ovechkin, and the Boston Bruins have Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Pastrnak. You don't have anybody that's in that ballpark. Nobody. And it's not even close. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Speaking of that, there are two guys last night that I thought really let the Predators down. I mean, really. Is it their fault or is it our fault for expecting more? That's next. Stillman Company. Reaction to Game 1. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. Game 1 reaction, Preds and Canes last night. Not all bad, tied 2-2. Going to the third, they had their opportunity. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, later this hour, his thoughts on it. Mark Howard, later today, Hal Gill as well. So I understand sometimes, Caroline, that I'm not the most popular guy in the world when it comes especially to the Predators.
I like you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But Preds fans can get very upset sometimes. And I usually just chalk it up to somebody's got to tell the truth, and that's me. And I don't affirm beliefs on the radio. I don't. I have opinions. I say them, and then I'm pretty strong in them, and I move on to the next opinion. And one of the things that has bothered me for years is that it feels like Predators fans have always wanted to believe that Ryan Ellis was a big-time player. They have always wanted to believe it. But the truth is, even going back to 2017, he was always the fourth guy. PK Subban was the number one guy, in the media because PK was the biggest story. Roman Josi was the number one guy because he was the best player. Matthias Ekholm playing with PK Subban, the number one pair. They were fantastic, and Ekholm is a really freaking good player. And Ryan Ellis had a nice little run in 2017. Ellis got hurt, had surgery, came back the next year, had an okay season, and then it came contract time. Ryan Ellis was great when he was making $3 million a year. He was awesome. Now he's making more. And now he's signed to a long-term contract. I believe it's 6 years after this year for Ryan Ellis. And at the beginning of this, I used to always argue. I argued with Hal Gill one time. He filled in for Floyd. And I argued with Hal Gill. And I said, I think before signing Ellis to the extension, I thought they needed to trade him. I saw what Oliver Ekman-Larsson got, and I saw what John Carlson got, and I'm like, that's too much money for Ryan Ellis. He was pushed around by the Jets, by the big body of Blake Wheeler, and those guys at Winnipeg, he was pushed around. And you look at Winnipeg's roster back in 2018, that's first-round pick city. Blake Wheeler, Patrick Laine, Kyle Connor. I mean, those are big boys, and they just pushed Ryan Ellis right along. And then in 2019, they signed him to the extension, which I was against. Wanted the picks and the prospects. Nope. They signed him to the extension. Then he gets just whipped around like a rag doll against Dallas. I mean, he just did nothing in the series, and Jamie Benn just embarrassed him in the corner, and everybody remembers it. And ever since then, it's like the star of Ryan Ellis keeps dimming. It just keeps dimming. I've been here the whole time. Preds fans, I think, are starting to catch up. This year, I think the Predators caught up. Remember the report Elliot Friedman said only Josi, Ellis, and Rinne were untouchable? And I threw my hands up and said, what makes Ryan Ellis so special? What makes Ryan Ellis special? And then Elliot Friedman said, I think some teams are calling the Predators and saying, maybe not Ekholm, but what about Ellis? Ryan Ellis, I think the Predators know. Ryan Ellis he's not that dude. He is not a first-pair defenseman in this league. I don't care what Adam Vingan's analytics.com say. He is not a first-pair defenseman. And last night was further proof that when you get into the big games against the big boys, he gets pushed around and he is a non-factor. When the Predators went to Game 7 of the second round in 2016, he was firmly a second-pair defenseman. Josi and Weber were one. He and Ekholm were two. And they were good. When the Predators went to the Cup the next year, that Josi and Ellis pair was a number 2 pair. Subban and Ekholm drew Patrick Kane. Subban and Ekholm were the ones who Peter Laviolette used as the first defensive unit. Subban and Ekholm are big, strong, talented. Ellis isn't. And he just keeps getting knocked around. And I wonder if last night was kind of the moment where the Preds fans realized everything that they've hoped for with Ryan Ellis, they realized he just can't, he's just not that. Because I watched last night and I thought Ellis just got totally knocked around by Carolina. Because he's not a first pair defenseman against the big boys. He's paid to be a first pair defenseman, but he's not. And by the way, Ellis got, I think, 6.25. Ekholm's going to get more. Ekholm's going to get in the 7 to 8 range because he's big, he's strong, he's powerful. He's a first-pair defenseman. Ryan Johansson on the other side of this. We've seen Ryan Johansson play really, really well in the playoffs. We saw 2017, he dominated Jonathan Toews. He, I think, scored the game-winning goal in Game 6 against the St. Louis Blues, and he went toe-to-toe with Ryan Kessler and the Anaheim Ducks, and they went after him in that series and ultimately ended up hurting him. And Ryan Johansson has had a steady decline ever since that, always kind of raising his game a little bit in the playoffs. Last night, Ryan Johansson played really well for a period, and then he totally fell off. And I'm starting to wonder with those two guys specifically, if maybe instead of saying if Ellis plays at this level, if Johansson plays at the 2017 level he did against Jonathan Toews, maybe these guys just are what they are. Maybe they're just not high-end players anymore. You know, sometimes guys have a prime, and everybody's prime is different. PK Subban in his prime, one of the best defensemen in the league. PK Subban now, not a replacement-level player. Maybe Ellis is just past his prime. Maybe Arvidsson is just past his prime. Maybe Johansson is just past his prime. Maybe these guys are what they are. And I said going into the season that I wanted to kind of evaluate the core and see who belongs and who doesn't. And right now, you can't tell me that Ryan Ellis is a first-pair defenseman on a Stanley Cup winner. You can't convince me Ryan Johansson is a number one center on a Stanley Cup winner. You can't convince me Victor Arvidsson is a first-line winger on a team that can compete. So, again, instead of getting worked up when they don't make plays, like last night they didn't make plays, maybe we're just at the realization that these guys aren't very good. Or at least that they're not as good at the level that you want them to be, or the level that they were sold to you they were going to be. We talk about Johansson and the $8 million all the time, but Adam Vingan said on the show before he signed the deal, he's going to be overpaid. Predators sent Seth Jones in order to get him. He's a restricted free agent. You got no choice but to give him money, and that's what they did. But now they're kind of stuck with it. Maybe this is who Johansson is. Remember John Tortorella? Now, this wouldn't be the first player John Tortorella didn't see eye to eye with. But John Tortorella took the job in Columbus, and he couldn't get rid of Ryan Johansson fast enough. Maybe that's just who he is. That's just his effort level. That's just who he is. Maybe Ryan Ellis is the same way. I asked John Hines today about Duchesne and Johansson, but specifically we'll focus on his answer on Johansson, about the fact that we've seen Johansson play number one center, minutes, just production in a Stanley Cup-ish run before he got hurt. And what has to happen for him to get back to that level? Here's what John Hines said.
I thought Joey started out strong early in the game. I didn't think it was as good as the game continued to go on. So I think the sustainability of playing at the level that we need him to play at, particularly against Stahl, as the game continues to go on at the same level of intensity, needs to be better for 60 minutes. So I thought there were some good pockets there with him, but we need much more sustainability and consistency as the game goes on, particularly in the playoffs, particularly on the road with matchups. That you got to be able to win your matchups, and you have to be able to do it for longer than 20 minutes.
Maybe he just can't win his matchups. Maybe we've just seen enough. Maybe the prime, but what we saw in 2017. Maybe it's over. I mean, there were guys, Jarrell Casey was a great Titan in 2017. He's probably out of the league now. Probably his career's over. Maybe Johansson and Ellis, maybe what they had then that we all believed in, or I shouldn't say we all, but what you all believed in, like maybe it's over. And that's why I think this series is a good look in the mirror. I mean, this will give you the idea of whether or not this team's legit. Remember, everybody says, hey, you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. When you play the best, it's a measuring stick. And last night, the guys that we believed in or had been sold were the guys that could compete with anybody, certainly couldn't do it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I'm not getting mad. I'm not demanding anybody be traded or fired or, released or bought out or whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, maybe it's eye-opening. Because I told people last night, Well, I'll tell you what I told people last night, because I do want to get to that. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones and your reaction. And I asked Philip Forsberg about the guys that aren't carrying their weight. What Philip Forsberg had to say, we'll do that as well. 615-737-1025. We're live from the Old Sonic Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Boy, it gets me excited to talk about those guys. They are the best. They are proud supporters of the Nashville Predators through thick and thin. Hiller is there. You can see that logo right there on the practice jersey, right there on the ice at Bridgestone Arena. Hiller loves the Predators, and they love tax credits for energy-efficient homes, and they're back this year. When you put Energy Star certified equipment in your home, you'll earn a tax credit with the IRS. This month, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical is helping you keep more money in your pocket and doubling your tax credit when you purchase select new HVAC systems and tankless water heaters. They're offering special financing so you make no payments until next year. Visit happyhiller.com for all of the details. As always, happy you will be, or the service is free. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, my guys, and proud supporters of the Predators and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Well, we have to, individually, and I think there's a lot of performances, within our lineup that need to be better from last night. And we've talked a lot about lineup changes and who's in and who's out, but there's lots of players that are in the lineup that don't really ever come out, and they need to be better. That's you need guys guys that you're expecting to be in your lineup every night, carry big minutes, play hard matchups. There needs to be better from that. And, we're talking about subbing certain guys in. Could be a 5-6 pair. It could be, guys that have been in and out of the lineup, some guys that are out of the lineup. But the basic comes down to is we can make those decisions. But the players that are in your lineup every night that you count on to play important roles, play big matchups, be difference makers in the game, there needs to be elevation in those players. And if that gets better, then our team's going to be able to be a better team and be more competitive as the series continues to go on. But first and foremost, that has to take place regardless of any other small lineup decisions you make.
There you go, Stillman Company. That was John Hines today, basically saying that those guys that we're talking about, the Ellises, the Johanssons, the Duchesnes, the money guys, that they need to play better. Last night, I told my friends, I was talking to my friends, and I said, in order for the Predators to beat these kind of teams and win these kind of games, the guys that we consider to be the good players, the guys that they have invested in being the good players, they have to match the level of the other team's good players. They have to play to that level. And I just think as a Predators fan, sometimes, Caroline, it gets tiring to watch the same thing every time. That being said, I think I was just pretty harsh on Ellis and Johansson. Do you think I was too harsh after one game, or do you think it is a fair criticism of what we have seen of late?
I think it's something that we very much so saw last night, so it's relevant to talk about it, but it's not just a knee-jerk reaction just from last night. I think that's something that we've been seeing from those two guys for quite some time. If we were to say, Kelly Yarncroke and Luke Cunningham after last night, they need to go. They don't deserve their contracts. That's not fair. They didn't play well in one game, and they've pulled their weight very much throughout this entire season.
Also, they've never been propped up as the big guy. I mean, Yarncroke's 6-year, $2 million per year contract, and he's a versatile two-way forward that can go up and down the lineup. Yarncroke has never been, a guy that we would look to and say, hey, you got to step up.
Right.
It's that, and I don't think
the
that's
guys who are
Hines is
making
talking about
$5,
either.
$6, $7, $8 million a year, and it worries me because there's a decent amount of time on Ryan Johansson, Ryan Ellis, Matt Duchene's contracts, and that's a lot of money to be paying these guys for not producing day in and day out as you should when you do have a contract of that size.
Do you think, though, it's an overreaction to one game? Or do you think do you sense the frustration? This is what I feel. I do wonder how the fans feel about it. We'll get to your phones in just a second. I am just and I go back to the Ellis thing. I am just so tired of every year Hal Gill and I fight about 10 times a year about whether or not Ryan Ellis is any good. And then push comes to shove and Ellis is the one getting pushed. And I'm so tired of it. And I'm just tired of sitting here and talking about, is Johansson going to produce more? Maybe I'm not going to be the greatest parent in the world whenever that day comes. Because if your kid keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, I kind of get tired of it at some point, right?
It does get tiring, especially because when you're getting in these situations where you need your guys, your big guys, the ones that you've been able to count on before, you need them to be really clutch. Last night, it would have been really nice to have the leadership and the production from the guys who need to bring it forward, and that's not necessarily what I saw last night. Roman Josi, I don't think he had that great of a game last night, and I'm not going to go around and say he doesn't deserve his contract. I think that he would be the first person to tell you, hey, I didn't perform like I needed to last night, and I may have really hurt my team's chances at game one, and I think that you see him turn around, and I think that you see in game two, Roman Josi has a much better game, but I don't know if I necessarily feel that same push, that same sort of internal motivation in Ryan Ellis and Ryan Johansson.
So I don't think it's about motivation with Ellis. I just don't think he's that good. I mean, at some point, it's like you're just not that good. It's like the Corey Davis effect, where everybody thinks Corey Davis is a lot better than Corey Davis is. Corey Davis is not good. I take that back. Corey Davis is an average wide receiver. He's a number 2 guy. And everyone's like, oh, Davis, we got to have him. But at least the Titans were smart enough to realize, hey, we're not paying Corey Davis all this money. Jonnu Smith's never had 500 yards receiving in a season. We're not paying him all this money. The Predators just paid all the money, and now I'm just so tired of it. I'm just so tired of watching Ryan Ellis get manhandled in the playoffs. I'm so tired. Now, I thought Johansson played well in the playoffs last year against Arizona in the bubble. I'm so tired of Arvidsson just going into witness protection during the playoffs. I'm so exhausted. At least Roman Josi, he plays. He didn't play well last night, but he plays.
He plays.
Philip Forsberg plays. Those guys are good. Ekholm plays. These other guys just drive me insane. We'll get to Duchene in a little bit because I do have a different feeling about Duchene. But let's go to your phone, 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Who's up? Craig is up next on UC Saros. Thank you for waiting patiently. Go ahead, Craig.
Hey, Jared, thank you for taking my call. One, I think Saros did a fantastic job of what he had. Like the first and second period, he was, he made some fantastic saves. And then that third goal where he made that save, it looked like all the other Predators were just sitting there with their hands, sitting on their hands. And then the second thing is, like, I totally agree with you about Arvidsson. Like, I'm sick and tired of seeing, like, the Predators only get, like, 20, maybe 30 minutes of great game time in the playoff situation. I'd like to see them do a 60-minute game throughout the whole playoff system. Thank you for taking my call. I'll hang up and listen now.
Thank you for that. Caroline, what did you think?
I don't blame him. I mean, I don't blame him for being tired for seeing that day in and day out. And I think it was Mikael Granlund or Mattias Ekholm today that said the team that wins plays harder for longer. And that sounds very obvious, but from last night, that's very much so what we saw. The Predators played really hard for 20 minutes. The Carolina Hurricanes played hard for 60. And I think that's incredibly frustrating to see the Predators get to this point and push their season to a point where we didn't think it was going to get and fall short. And I think that, and to your question earlier about, is that an overreaction to game one? It might be. It was only game one. Like, this series very much so has a lot of time left to it. But I think that game one exposed a lot of the holes that the Predators have in their lineup that we may have overlooked during that stretch of a lot of wins.
Oh, I don't think we overlooked it. I mean, I'd say we, because I always talk for myself. Right. I guess when I say we, like,
maybe Predators fans as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same people that called in saying fire the coach, fire the general manager, are now saying, hey, you got 2017 vibes from this team. And I was like, remember when you first started, remember my analogy, Kentucky football?
Uh-huh.
You just went up against Georgia last night.
Right.
That's what happened. So if I got some 5-star recruits, or guys you're telling me are 5-star recruits, they better start playing like it against Alabama. They better start playing like it against LSU. Because I will say this about the Predators. This is my feeling about last night's game, going back to Hines and John Hines wanting to say, well, it was tied 2-2 after the second period, and we just got to play better and win a game. And I grew up a Vanderbilt football fan, which, if you listen to this show, you know that obviously I'm not a huge Vanderbilt football fan anymore. But I grew up a humongous Vanderbilt football fan, which also meant rooting against Tennessee a lot. But, I'd watch Vanderbilt on Saturdays knowing they were going to lose. But every now and then they always kind of gave you a little hope. Like they'd play a Florida or a Georgia or an Alabama, or when Tennessee was good, they'd play that kind of team. And it would be 13-10 Georgia after 3. And you thought, are we going to do this? Like, are we going to beat the Georgia Bulldogs? And this would happen about once or twice a season, and it would be one of the good teams, a Georgia, a Florida, a team like that. It's like, are we going to beat the Georgia Bulldogs or the Florida Gators? And then Florida would score a touchdown, and then Vanderbilt would fumble the kickoff, and Florida would score another touchdown, and then Vanderbilt's down by 2 scores, so now they're throwing, or now 3 scores, and now they're throwing, and they go 3 and out. They punt to Florida. Florida scores another touchdown. Final score, 41-10. But in that third quarter, it was like, can Vanderbilt do this? Can Vanderbilt? And first time they ever actually did it, I was a sophomore in high school. They beat Georgia. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, Vanderbilt beat Georgia. And I was 16. That's how long it took. When I watched the Predators last night, and it's tied 2-2, it had the Vanderbilt football vibes. Can they really do this? Can they really beat the Hurricanes? And then the Hurricanes went out there like Florida or Georgia or Alabama or Tennessee back when they were good, and they flexed their muscle on Vanderbilt in the third period. And I hope that that's not the accurate assessment here, that Vanderbilt is not, or Vanderbilt, that the Predators are not Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt football when I was a kid. When James Franklin was the Vanderbilt coach, it was a miracle because all those games where it's like, are they going to do this? They ended up doing it. Are they going to beat Georgia? They did. Are they going to beat Florida? They did. They beat Tennessee. It's like, wow, they actually did it. But with the Predators, I have these vibes inside of myself that's like, are they really going to be able to compete with this team? Are they really going to do it? And we hear from the callers and the texters that optimistically say, oh, no, they're going to do it. This team, I believe in this team. They're going to do it. And you know what? Maybe they win game 2. I don't think they're going to win game 2, but maybe they win game 2 and make this a series and put Carolina, put them on edge. But I just have a hard time. I know how good. I now consistently have seen how good the good players for the Preds are, and I've seen how good the Carolina good players are, and I just don't see much matching up there as far as it's concerned. 615-737-1025. I did ask Philip Forsberg about those guys playing better. I thought his answer was interesting. And then, of course, we'll go to your phones. 615-737-1025, Stillman Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. We are streaming live on Twitter, where you just go to my Twitter or 1025 The Game or Caroline's Twitter. You just click right there, watch us. And I would say subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've really gotten in to, I don't want to admit this on the air, but every morning I wake up. I've been doing like cardio every morning before I eat, do the fasted cardio. Some people say it helps burn more fat. Some people say it doesn't. But I think it's a nice start to the day.
Just get your body moving.
Take a light little cardio, get thinking. And I used to watch ESPN all the time, but ESPN's not going to talk with the Predators. So I have been watching Robbie and Rex Road on YouTube. So you literally just put YouTube in, 1025 The Game, just click it. And all of our shows are there. So if you're somebody who drives home at 3:30 like you are right now, just click that, when you get home, say you're doing stuff, just put us on YouTube, and you can see our shining and very, very handsome faces.
And you can also watch back previous shows. So if you're not available from 2 to 6 and you want to get your Stillman
Just like
Company
a podcast.
content, exactly, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Spotify, you can go to Twitter, and you can watch our shows back.
So I've just gotten really into that. So, yeah. There's something else I think I was going to tell the people about. ESPN 1025 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the keyword to text and to win. Good luck from 1025 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Harper now with Niederreiter right there. Niederreiter looked like he was going to stick the knee out. And the puck comes back to center. Lift in by Niederreiter. Trying to go across, and the shot was stopped. Trocheck somehow or another missed that, but then they follow up, and Foss puts it in, or Niederreiter from the slot, and the Hurricanes at 2:26 of the third take a 3-2 lead.
What an initial save from Saros. And the play continues behind the net, then right out into the slot. Niederreiter buries it.
Oh, that one was painful. The game winner for Carolina. So last night, and again, I think the bigger issue is you hear the names for Carolina on every big play. Trocheck, Teravainen, Niederreiter, Stahl, Aho. It's all the big guys. Where are your big guys? I asked Philip Forsberg last night after the game about what he can do. He's in a leadership position as an assistant captain. I asked Philip Forsberg after the game, how can he get the guys that have played well in the past, that are considered to be good players, that aren't playing well, how can he get them to play well? Here's what Philip Forsberg said after the game.
Phil, you played with a lot of guys on this team that have had high-level success in the playoffs. What can you do to get some of those guys that may be not playing at that level right now to play there so you guys can compete with Carolina?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly who you're referring to, but I think we obviously, everybody that are in this team are looking at each other in the mirror every night. We want to come out and play our best hockey, and I can only speak for myself, but I mean I can do a lot of things better out there, and definitely play a better, more complete game. And those individuals that you're referring to, you have to ask them.
You think you buy that he doesn't know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't buy that.
Ian, you buy that he doesn't know who I'm talking about?
Well, I think some of those players, I guess you're mostly referring to the Cup run year.
Sure. I mean,
I would think,
I'm referring
since
to,
considering they didn't really have much more success after that.
And Duchesne. I mean, Duchesne's had success in the league. I mean, he's been an all-star. He took out Tampa a couple of years ago. I mean, Duchesne's got skins on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, but yes. I mean, to me, I'm referring to Johansson, Ellis, Arvidsson, Duchesne, that
Yossi,
group.
Yeah.
But like Yossi, and yeah, I didn't think Yossi was great last night, but he's not in what I would now call the do more crew.
No.
Like the guys that need to start doing more. The pay what you owe group. This is the do more crew. Arvidsson, Johansson, Ellis, Duchesne. Am I leaving anybody out of the do more crew?
I don't think so. I think that sounds about right. All the guys. Maybe Granlund, maybe.
Nah, Granlund's played pretty well, and he's not a big money guy, and we never really loved Granlund. So
I think that's probably fair then.
The do more crew, he knows who I'm talking about. Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We got tons of text messages to get to. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, going to join us in just a little bit with his thoughts on Game 1. Caroline, what's in the text line?
James texted in and said, I don't understand why Arvidsson is in the top line. He is constantly getting knocked down or falling down. He hasn't been using his speed to his advantage. Duchesne should move up with Forsberg and Joey because he's harder to knock off the puck. If it were up to me, Rocco would play over Arvidsson.
So if it were up to me, neither guy's playing. I would not play Arvidsson. I am over Arvidsson. If Arvidsson were 100% healthy, then I'd give him a crack on the third line, which is where he played and was very effective in 2016. Now, he was on that first line in 2017, but if you look back at 2017, Arvidsson scored the first goal against Chicago, and I think he had another goal against St. Louis, and he didn't do much until the Stanley Cup final. And when he scored in the final, it was like, I remember him with an interview saying, I needed that. I think Arvidsson is used up. It's like what everybody fears one day is going to happen to Derrick Henry, where the tread is just off the tires. I think that little body has played as hard as possible for as long as he could, and he has gotten all the mileage out of him that he can go with, and this is what he is. I mean, I think the tread is off the tires on Arvidsson. I think the injuries keep piling up for Arvidsson. I agree with the texter. I would put Duchesne on that first line. I would do it because, again, I said this yesterday, is it put up or shut up time for Johansson and Duchesne? And Duchesne's not getting enough of an opportunity. Let's just be real. I asked John Hines, Ian, if you could, I asked Hines about Johansson and Duchesne. And John Hines just will not play Duchesne 5-on-5. And I don't think that's fair. And I tweeted out this morning because I heard the morning show talking about Duchesne and about, is this kind of it with Duchesne and Hines and the lack of playing time? And I tweeted out this morning, I said, am I the only one that thought Matt Duchesne played okay last night? Obviously he wasn't good, but I thought he was okay. He had an assist on the Holla goal. I thought Duchesne played pretty well.
He produced last night.
I thought he played okay. I
don't think he played $8 million a year, but he definitely produced.
Yeah, he didn't play like a good player, but he didn't play like a bad player. He was fine.
I do wonder why he's not on the power play one. They put Yarncroke on the first power play since Tolvanen was out.
I'm
not really sure.
I want to investigate the relationship between Hines and Duchesne because Duchesne clearly was politicking to be on that line with Arvidsson or with Johansson and Forsberg. And Hines quickly shut that down last week. To Ian's point, he's not on the first power play unit. What? And I asked Hines about Duchesne, and to Hines' credit, I think he's going to play Duchesne more. Here's what Hines said today.
I think as far as Matt, I thought Matt played pretty well. I think that there's some opportunities to get him in there a little bit more, which we will. Sometimes it's the matchups and the way the game goes. But, I thought Matt won a lot of puck battles in the offensive zone. He had the nice assist. I thought a lot of, with the amount that we killed and you come back off the lines. But we're going to need both those guys to be real strong players for us here moving forward.
It's kind of like, hey, yeah, I should have played him more, which, again, I'm looking at the coach saying, and the other thing about Duchesne is this. You have to find out what you have in him. At some point, you got to know. Okay, is this a $3 million guy that you paid $8 million to? Or is this a guy who's got it in him? He just needs a little consistency. He just needs a little success. And I told you guys yesterday, I told you, Caroline, I feel like Matt Duchesne, since the day he signed that contract, has played with a grand piano worth of pressure strapped to his back. And they've got to play him because they've got to see what they have. The difference between me and the Predators is the Predators have approached everything as if all that mattered this year was making the playoffs, and that all that matters in the playoffs is finding a way to win the Stanley Cup. I have never dreamed that this team could win a Stanley Cup. So I have been more so thinking about in the future, what can you do to be good enough to go compete for the Cup? I'd rather have a team. The Colorado Avalanche. Ian, you remember the Punch and Judy Avalanche.
Yeah, they're looking pretty solid.
When they had that team and they lost in 6 games to the Predators, I said they're going to be good in a couple years. They're going to be good. I'd rather have that team, that 2018 Avalanche team, that Punch and Judy bum team. I'd rather have them than the Predators right now because that 2018 team, you could see. You knew McKinnon was already a superstar. Landeskog, Rantanen, who I think is kind of a good player because he's playing with those guys. Sam Girard, you knew that Cole Makar was in the pipe. You knew. They had a good coach in Jared Bednar. You knew that Colorado team was eventually going to be good.
Do you not think the young guys on this Predators team can eventually become that?
Hell no. No. Nathan McKinnon at that point was a first-line center who absolutely rocked the Predators in that 6-game series. He was the best player on the ice in that series. And I remember going in, and I didn't know much about Colorado because they weren't worth watching for 6 years before this. And they traded away Matt Duchesne at the beginning of that season, and that was like, oh, my God, they traded away their only good player. They trade away Matt Duchesne. They end up making the playoffs. They beat the Blues on the last night of the year. They get into the playoffs. And everyone's like, oh, my God, this McKinnon, this first line, this McKinnon. And I just remember McKinnon being out on the ice, and it looked like, that's like Michael Jordan on skates. That guy is awesome. John Hines won't even play the 2 young guys that might be the future of the Predators. He won't even put them in the game. You wouldn't do that to Nathan McKinnon. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, his reaction. He will join us next. His thoughts on the Predators' Game 1 loss. Is it as bad as it feels? We'll ask Greg Wyshynski that next. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Preds losers 0-1, but again, as I said yesterday, I gave the Predators a 20% chance to win the series, and that a loss would not affect that. So it's still 80-20, but I would have settled for 2-2 going to the third period out of court, and the Predators did not respond in the third period. How damaging was last night, and how much was last night a true reflection of the talent gap between the Predators and the Hurricanes? Greg Wyshynski joins us now, ESPN NHL analyst. So, Greg, let's start with that question right there. Last night's game, 2-2 going to the third. I'm sitting there thinking, just steal it. Just find a way to score and then let UC Saros lock it up, steal game one from Carolina, take the advantage right then and there, and they got totally out-muscled, outplayed, outskated, just toughed by Carolina. And now I'm wondering if this Predators team belongs on the same ice as the Hurricanes. What's your reaction to game one?
Yeah, no, I think that's a proper read of it, right? Like, you know, I saw some comments from David Poyle earlier today about how, you know, they need their best players to step up in situations like that. And I think game one is a prime example of it. You know, the Carolina Hurricanes got what they needed from some of their top scorers. And when you need someone to make a play in a 2-2 game, you didn't get someone to make a play in a 2-2 game. So it's frustrating, and mostly it's frustrating because as the underdog in the series, you know, you want to put the fear of God in them a little bit, you know, in game one. You know, that's where you start to make your declarative statement about how the series is going to go, and they just didn't get that in game one.
I think what bothers me, going back to those Poyle comments, and John Hines probably said it about 5 times in his 7-question press conference today. But what bothers me about the notion of the good players need to play well is that's the reason David Poyle used when he fired Peter Laviolette. That's what happened when the Predators got manhandled by the Dallas Stars in 2019. It was, hey, we need these guys. And, you know, as we're now calling them on the show, Greg, the Do-More crew, Johansson, Arvidsson, Ellis. You know, the Predators are saying, we need these guys to do more. They pay Matt Duchene all this money to come in and do more. And I'm just wondering if these guys just aren't as good as they're paid to be, or as good as the Predators have maybe hyped them up to be.
Yeah, but isn't that just the general conundrum of the season? I mean, you know, there was a time earlier this year that we were all talking about whether or not it was the end of this group's run, whether there needed to be significant changes, whether there needed to be a significant change in the big job in the front office. And then, you know, UC Saros goes nuts. They get enough offense. The Dallas Stars can't answer the bell, and the playoffs. And now you're wondering about whether, you know, that conversation should continue, or if you know, it's not going to continue in the off season because of just making the playoffs. It's a great question. I mean, it's the question we've had about this core for a while.
Will you tell me where you lie on that, Greg Wyshynski, our guest? Because I think I am the unpopular one here, Greg, in Nashville. The run that they went on was fun. It was exciting. It's fun to be in the playoffs. It's fun to be covering a team that is in the playoffs. It doesn't really change my outlook on kind of David Poyle or where the team is headed. I don't see, and it's funny, Greg, because we just compared this to the 2018 Avalanche team that the Predators beat in 6 games. You could see that Avalanche team, and you knew they were going to be pretty good in a couple of years. I don't think you can look at this Predator team if they get bounced in 5 games by Carolina and say, hey, they have the makings of something that could be special. I think that tells you that's what you are, is you are good enough to make the playoffs and you're not good enough to do anything else.
I think what it comes down to is, like, who's making that decision, though. You know what I mean? Like, I think if it's David Poyle, I think he likes this roster. I think he kind of likes the core. He's obviously handed out some contracts that would speak to this being the group that's going to be in place going forward for a little bit. If it's, you know, one of these several ownership groups within ownership that'll be making this call, what are their opinions? Are they okay being just good enough to contend, but maybe not good enough to win a Stanley Cup? It's a conundrum because I'm not entirely sure, and I've spoken to people in Nashville that aren't entirely sure who is ultimately going to determine the direction of this organization.
Mm-hmm. Am I overreacting to game one?
No, it depends on what your overreaction is. Is your overreaction that they're not good enough to win the series? Because that's the right reaction. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes are a really good hockey team. They're a complete team. They can beat you in a variety of ways. They're obviously getting good goaltending. And if they didn't get it from the kid last night, they had other options to go to. Their defense core is the kind of thing that we used to tout about the Predators back in the day as far as its depth and quality. They're a better team, just overall. I think there should be some pride in having made the playoffs in a very strange season and made the playoffs ahead of some other teams that were at times a little bit more hard-charging than they were at the end. But by no means the series.
Greg Wyshynski's our guest. One thing that bothered me, and I don't know how much it should bother me, but I said on Friday when John Hines hinted that he may take Eeli Tolvanen out of the lineup, I thought that taking Tolvanen and Fabro out of the lineup was a bad idea. And I thought it was a bad idea for a lot of reasons. One of it being, I don't know how most people were when they were 22, but when I was 22, if you put somebody in ahead of me that was worse than me, I probably would have resented it a little bit. I think last night the Predators missed that on the power play with Eeli Tolvanen out. I think clearly running out Ben Harper, who is a minor league player, and Eric Goodbranson instead of Dante Fabro. I thought those were bad decisions. I'm not sure how bad of a decision it was, but I just don't understand what John Hines was thinking by taking more talented guys out of the roster to put in guys who aren't. And I just wonder how much you think maybe that line of thinking hurt John Hines last night.
Well, yeah, but it also speaks to the bigger conversation we're having here, right? Like, you have two guys that are that age that in theory should be part of your building blocks towards something different eventually, right? Wouldn't playoff experience, wouldn't putting them in that spot, wouldn't a game one on the road looking for them to contribute kind of be more to speak to that end than anything else? Like, to me, it's kind of only detrimental to the game at hand, but detrimental to the building process that should be happening in the organization.
Do you think Greg Wyshynski's with us? Do you think that the Predators, if they can take game 2, can make a series out of this?
No! I just told you. Carolina's great. They're the superior team. I respect, there are certain parts of the Predators that I respect, and I do believe that their high-end players have more to contribute than they've contributed, and maybe things are a little bit more interesting. I'm not saying that this is a sweep. I'm not saying that it's a mismatch of mismatches. I'm just saying that Carolina is the better team, and at the end of the day, I don't know if there's another gear the Predators can find that's going to change that.
Mm-hmm. What do people who don't cover the Predators but cover the league as a whole make of the regression of Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene?
Well, Duchene was always a weird one because, like, he's sort of treated as a star player. He's been acquired to be a star player, and he's not necessarily shown to be at that level on a consistent basis. He's a perfect 2A rather on a team. Problem being is that, like you said, they don't have a 1A right now in the way that Johansson's played, and it's really inexplicable, and it's a bummer. I mean, listen, I covered the Cup final when they made it, and I think one of the great what ifs in recent hockey history is that what if he was healthy for that playoff, for the latter parts of that playoff. But from the outside looking in, it's a conundrum, and it's one of those deals where if you're looking for changes to be made going forward, it obviously has to be not to have those two guys making that kind of money both at the same position and not producing commensurate to that investment.
Yeah, I covered the Bruins when I first got started in this industry, and I know how the fans of Boston would react to the situation the Predators are in. You brought up that Cup final run. Greg, you were on with us talking about, when the New Jersey Devils went through their first big run and how that kind of spurred on that fan base. Do you think if the Predators had a more advanced market, as in, people that had grown up with the game, do you think their feelings about this run that they've had this season and getting into the playoffs would be different than it is now, where a lot of people that called this show that wanted to fire the general manager or fire the coach or blow up the roster now are saying, hey, in 2017, this team went all the way to the Cup final. Do you think it'd be different if it was a longer tenured with more success fan base?
That's a tough one because I don't want to be insulting a Predators fans who are some of the most passionate people I've ever met. And I think that I mean, I've got people in my life that are Preds fans that are real pissed off about the way that things have gone. There's no question there's a level of anger about and frustration about just being good enough, and not having maybe capitalized on the opportunity that they had, when everybody was young and locked into long-term contracts and going to the Cup, but then not returning to that level in the subsequent season. I will say, though, that, as far as maturation of a market, maturation of a franchise, the level of success of being a Cup contender is still a very recent development. And I think where you're right is that if this was a team that had won significantly or even challenged significantly in its first decade of existence, then maybe the perceptions of the last few years would be different. Because we're still kind of in a, for lack of a better term, a honeymoon period for contention. You know what I mean? And maybe that the happy vibes from that kind of dull the edges a little bit on how frustrating it should be to not have capitalized on the opportunity they had. They were stacked, man. Like, that Cup team, when it lost, and you and I spoke about it at that point, the next few years were exactly like the Colorado situation, where everybody was locked in, they had a ton of cap space, everybody was young, and for whatever reason, the core didn't capitalize on it, and maybe there wasn't enough done to color around the edges the right way to make them a championship team.
Yeah. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, last one for you, Greg. If the Predators are going to win the series, I said if they're going to win the series, what actually has to happen in order for it to become a reality?
You need line to get going in a pretty significant way, in a way that makes the Carolina Hurricanes pay attention. You need Saros to steal upwards of 2 games in the series, maybe more. And maybe, I hate to say this, but Carolina's real good, but there are certain threads that can be pulled where they're maybe unravel a little bit. I think they got really lucky with Slavin playing, and we saw last year that when Svechnikov went out, it kind of changed the complexion. They've got offensive depth, but not a huge amount of it. So if one of their guys went out, that could change the trajectory of the series. But again, man, you're dealing with a team that can beat you offensively, can be the best team in the series defensively, and if you do get to the kid goalie, they've got experience behind them to kind of fill in the blanks. They're a really well-constructed team, and they're going to be a real tough out.
Yep, Greg Wyshynski, ESPN. And I think a lot of that, too, is also credit to how good Carolina is. Greg, appreciate it. Appreciate you. As always, I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yep, Greg Wyshynski, ESPN. Well, how about that? Hey, if they win Game 2, can it be a series? Nope, says Greg Wyshynski. Your reaction? Because I have a little bit different reaction. I think that Greg and I probably are on the same wavelength, Caroline, on a lot of things. I have a different reaction, though. I really do. 615-737-1025, your reaction. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, says on this show, even if they win Game 2, they're not going to beat Carolina. What do you make of that? Because I have my take on it next. 615-737-1025, Stillman Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving, Mark Howard in 30 minutes. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. We're streaming on the Game Nashville app. Stillman Company, delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. Mark Howard will join us in about 25 minutes or so. Caroline Fenton is here. Ian is here. So Greg Wyshynski, ESPN on the show. Greg can say whatever he wants. Nobody's going to be mad. He doesn't have a fan base to talk to. Greg Wyshynski says even if the Predators win Game 2, no shot to win this series. What do we think? What do we agree? Do we disagree? 615-737-1025, Caroline Fenton. Do you agree with Greg's candidness about the Predators' chances of winning the series?
I personally disagree, because if the Predators do take Game 2, why can't they win this series? The series is going to be tied, and they're coming back to Nashville, and they're going to get a ton of momentum if they do win Game 2, winning Game 2 and coming back home. So I think that those are two key components. If the Predators lose Game 2, I still think there's a small chance, but my chances go down a lot. But, I say if they win Game 2, why can't they win this series? I understand that Carolina is the better team. I understand that they look like the more dominant team in Game 1, but there's a lot left to the series.
Ian, do you agree if they win Game 2, they're still not going to win the series, according to Greg Wyshynski?
I tend to agree with Greg.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I just don't have a great feeling about the Preds being able to elevate their play enough throughout the entire series, regardless of what happens, to be able to overcome the entire team. I just don't think they have enough horses.
I'm torn in between. I'm in between because I think that stealing a game on the road would be a big one. I think if they win Game 2, I think it would be a big step in the right direction for the Predators. I really do. I really think that would be, all you have to do when you're the road team. We had Terry Crisp on last week, and I asked Crispy, throw out the coaching BS of, hey, every game's important. How important is it just to take one at Carolina? And Crispy said, it's a big deal. You want to just steal one. That's all you say is steal one, go home. I kind of agree with Ian. I kind of agree with Greg. I don't think there's any guarantee you beat the Carolina Hurricanes at home. And, after watching last night's game, I think I'm a little torn because I don't want to overreact to one game. Again, you lose Game 1 of a series. That happens. You're the road team. All you've got to do is take Game 2. You know what they say, it's never a series until the home team loses. All you've got to do is take Game 2, defend Bridgestone Arena, and you're going back to Raleigh to try to win it in Game 5. But at the same time, Carolina, I wonder if last night's game was just the pure indication that at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, when the going gets tough, when the true playmakers come out at night, is Carolina better than you? And was that what last night was? Football, we always have this feeling because there's only one game in the playoffs, that what happened in that one game is a for sure guarantee. Now, I can for sure guarantee you that the Titans aren't Super Bowl contenders, but if they had played the Ravens 10 times, I think they would have won 5 or 6 of those times. I'm not for sure that Baltimore was better than the Titans. The Titans went to Baltimore and beat them. So I could see that going either way. I don't want to take one playoff game and say that that's gospel for the series, but it confirmed so many of my beliefs about the gap between the two teams. And it's almost like John Hines had devised this just wonderful secret plan that nobody saw coming. And as he goes through this plan about, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in Matthew Olivier. They are going to have no idea. Ian brought this up yesterday. What if they put in Olivier and Jeannot? And it's like, oh, my God, now you're really going to trick them. I'm going to put in Ben Harper. I'm going to put in Eric Goodbranson. Boy, you showed them we're going to be physical. We're going to be tough. We're going to hit them in the mouth, and they're not going to be able to respond. They out-hit the Predators last night 56-49. That's +7 for Carolina. That was your best game plan that you had a week to devise. And they out-hit you. That is concerning. What's your second option now to that? Because clearly you don't think you could beat them straight up, right? So, like, what's the second part?
They're going to have to try and lock them down defensively.
You think that's going to work?
And I don't know if it's going to work for the whole series. You know, over time, you would think Carolina will find a way. But, I mean, I think that's their best chance to try and steal a game, at least game 2. And just make it a super low event kind of style game, you know? Just pack it in.
You're really talking about Barry Trotzing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going to – so in 2012, and this is one of my favorite series because I think it's when I really became a Predators fan. In the 2012 series against Vancouver, Vancouver was so much freaking better than the Predators. They had Ryan Kessler. They had the Sedin twins. I'm trying to think of who else was on that team. Roberto Luongo was in net. They ended up losing in 7 to the Bruins in the Cup final in 2011. They were freaking awesome. The 2011 Vancouver Canucks. I mean, this team, Pekka stole game 2 in Vancouver, and I believe he stole game 5 in Vancouver. I mean, just stole them. That team was so much better than the Predators, and Pekka was awesome in those games. And even the games at home, I think they lost a game in overtime to Vancouver, but Vancouver was just so much better. And I wonder if that's what we're looking at, where to Ian's point, you can muck it up and maybe you get yourself a game or 2, but can you really win 4 against this team? And I think last night, you know, I walked in pre-Greg Wyshynski interview. I walked in with the idea that, hey, you lost last night. I don't like how it went down. I don't like some of the issues that came from it for what it may mean for, you know, is Joe Hansen going to play hard in the playoffs? Is Ryan Ellis really that bad? You know, those kind of questions I don't like. I mean, they're very uncomfortable. But I didn't, you know, hey, you lose game 1, move on to game 2. You win game 2, you steal home ice. And then the more I kind of think about Wyshynski, the more I'm like, was last night's game kind of the showing of the talent, the gap between the two teams? We talked about it yesterday. What's the gap? What is the gap between the two teams? Was the third period the definition of that gap? And so I'm kind of torn. Wyshynski says they can't win the series even if they win game 2. I shouldn't say can't. He said they won't. You disagree? And I'm somewhere in between.
I disagree in that I don't think that if they win game 2, I don't think that they win the series. But I don't think that they don't win if they win game 2.
615-737-1025. What do you think about it? 615-737-1025. We're right to your phones next. Mark Howard will join us at 4:30. His reaction to game 1, his thoughts on game 2. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman Company. Again, if you're looking for a place to watch the game tomorrow, Party Foul in Cool Springs. It's a brand new location. Is the place to watch it. They will be giving away a pair of tickets for Game 4, and they will be announcing that you must be present to win in the second period. So that's Party Foul, Cool Springs Boulevard, Galleria Boulevard, 1914 Galleria Boulevard. We'll be there tomorrow from 2 to 6. But again, everybody come on out and enjoy that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Stillman Company. Go to thegamenashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. This week, it's buy one, get one free tickets to Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon. Beach Bend Park is your ticket to summer fun. Double your fun and double your savings with BOGO admission. 2 parks, 2 tickets for the price of 1. Get yours now at thegamenashville.com. Stillman Company. We're live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
without the, for lack of a better word, fear of coming out of the lineup, how do you as a coach motivate them when perhaps they don't have, they don't have that idea of coming out of the lineup, perhaps, creeping over their shoulder, so to speak?
Well, that's the responsibility. They're good players. They're prideful guys. They've, there's really no question on that. It's just how do we help them and how do they help themselves get to the consistency level in the game that we need them to get to. And I think that's what part of it is here. And that's when you're in those roles and you have that responsibility, then, it's the combination of the players and coaches to figure out the way that we need to get to play. But I think when you get to this point in the season, Adam, when you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs and you're going through, it's not about, whether you're going to come in or come out. It's driving a team, wanting to win, competing for the Stanley Cup, playing the best when the chips are on the line. That's all part of that role. It's all part of the responsibility when you're in that role.
That was John Hines earlier today. Not sure I really love that answer, right? Like, how do you motivate the guys that are definitely going to play at a higher level? Well, it's not about that, huh?
Well, then what is it about?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I love that answer. Right now we're trying to figure out how to motivate these guys, play a little bit better. I don't. I get a little concerned. Do you have a thought, or do you want to go to the phones?
To the phones.
Phone 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mark Howard will join us with his Game 1 reaction in 10 minutes. Alexander going to kick us off here. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Alexander.
Thank you for taking my call, Jared. Love the show, and I'm so excited about the Preds in this playoff run. But I just need to see more of Eli Tolvanen. I feel like he was our spark plug leading up to this, and it seems that our power play is non-existent without him. I don't care if he's not 100%, but he can skate circles around Ben Harper. So that's thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Yep. Thank you for the call, Alexander. What do you think makes Hines look the worst as far as the Tolvanen situation is concerned? The fact that the power play looks lifeless, or the fact, as Greg Wyshynski brought up, which is a point I made on Friday, which was, if you're really planning for the future, don't you want Tolvanen and Fabro to get experience in the playoffs? And the third part about this is, who got you here? Matthew Olivier did not get you to this point. Matthew Olivier was on the team this year, I believe, before Eli Tolvanen was. Matthew Olivier didn't get you here. Ben Harper played at times, but he didn't get you here. Eric Goodbranson didn't really do anything to get you here. Who got you here? And to me, that was, Saros and Tolvanen. I mean, those were the two guys that when things were really bad, and Pekka, because Saros was hurt, that when things were really bad, Tolvanen was what turned it around. And now you're benching him. And why is Tolvanen, to Hines' point right there about the guys that are going to be in the lineup no matter what that need to play better, why is Tolvanen not one of those guys? I mean, I try to figure out, and again, we talked about this at length on Friday. We talked about it yesterday. To me, there is a pro and a cons list of benching Eli Tolvanen. And this is not second guessing. This is first guessing. But there is a pro and a cons list. And I thought the pros for playing Tolvanen far outweighed the cons. And I guess they disagree, but which part of it do you think bothers you the most that they didn't play Tolvanen?
I think right now the most immediate impact that the Predators need for the playoffs, and if they want to win the series, it's the power play. I mean, you could see the difference in the power play whenever Eli Tolvanen came back from injury. It was just so much more electric. So I think right now the thing that bothers me the most is that the Predators don't have Eli Tolvanen's contributions on the power play. Looking forward and looking down the road, if they want to become the type of team that the Carolina Hurricanes are playing like, you have to get Eli Tolvanen and Dante Fabro in the lineup in these big-time, crunch-time games. So, immediate impact, the power play. Looking down the road, it's them getting that pressure experience in the playoffs.
I just don't know. I mean, I know what they were thinking, and I get it, but I just was so against it then, and I'm just so against it now. To your text, 615-737-1025. What's in the text line, Carol?
This is kind of a hot one.
Give it to me.
From Alex, and it's Alex's birthday, so he's allowed to be a little spicy, so happy birthday to Alex. Alex said, honestly, they couldn't pass like Carolina could, and Saros let in some softies. If he loses again, I say start Pekka at home and get a shakeup.
That will be a topic If they lose Wednesday night, that'll be a discussion on Thursday and Friday about, should they play Pekka? To me, I thought Saros was good last night. I didn't think Saros was incredible, unbelievable, but I don't blame the first goal on him. I thought that was a bad
He didn't get any help.
I don't blame Saros on the second goal. That was a great shot by Jordan Stahl. I don't blame Saros on the third goal because that was a complete defensive breakdown with Ben Harper, Eric Goodbranson, and Ryan Johansson with their thumbs up their rear end. And the fourth goal was – which was the fourth goal, Ian?
The Stahl goal where he kind of corralled it in the slot and kind of wheeled it and it went 5-hole.
Oh, yeah, that was just –
it was kind of a loose puck and he – kind of, I don't know if he necessarily out-muscled anybody, but he just kind of, Saros, I don't think saw that one.
Yeah, that's a 50-50 one. If you want to blame that one on Saros, you can, I guess. And then the fifth one was an empty netter. So I don't have a problem with Saros. Just telling you right now, Saros last night, not the problem. You know me, I'm a Pekka guy, but Saros not the problem last night. What else we got?
One texter said Preds definitely deserved to lose that last night since Carolina just played harder. Their goals were skilled shots, and the Preds definitely did not punch them in the mouth.
Are we substituting the word harder for better? Carolina is better than the Predators. Mm-hmm. But the Predators should be playing equally as hard, if not harder than Carolina. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm not questioning effort with the Predators last night.
No.
And I feel like sometimes there is a lot of questioning when you hear Carolina played harder. Well, that is a question of the effort of the Predators. I'm not questioning the effort. I think Ryan Ellis is playing hard. I just think he kind of stinks when it comes to playing good players, big players on really good teams. So I go back to this. In that question, do we think that that's the right, adverb, that they played harder? Or do we think that they're just better? Because there are two different things. I think Carolina is way better than the Predators. I don't think, though, effort is a problem for the Nashville Predators. If you want to discuss it with Johansson, that's been a 3-year topic. Sure. But I thought they played hard last night.
They did play hard last night, and I think it's just a matter of they weren't able to play hard for 60 minutes. They played hard for 20.
Well, but I see if you say that, the way you just said that they played hard for 20, is it that they played hard for 20 or is it they played well for 20?
They played well for 20.
Okay.
They wanted it for 60. It's not a matter of wanting it or effort.
When you say somebody stinks or somebody's not good enough, which is, I think, the bigger issue here. Like Greg Wyshynski doesn't think the Predators can win the series because he doesn't think they're good enough. That's not questioning somebody's character, right? That is, you're not good enough. There are a lot of people that I think would love to host a radio show and, put a microphone in front of them and they would care about it and they'd work hard, but they're just not good enough. Then there are some people that just wouldn't really work hard at it and just walk in and go, all right, what do we talk about today? What happened? Oh, baseball, yes. We'll interview Bobby up next, like that kind of thing.
That's not the Predators.
Right. Like I think the Predators are playing hard. They're just not good enough. And I think that's the one thing that I don't want to get too into is not playing hard. Because you know me. If I see not playing hard, it will come out of my mouth. There are no sacred cows on this radio show. But I think it's the better problem, not the playing hard thing. And I wonder with Hines, he's trying to challenge these guys to tell them to play better. Some guys are going to turn that off because some guys are going to hear that as, I need to play harder. It's like, Coach, I'm giving it everything I got. And I worry about that. Coach Hines' coaching style, I think it's certainly one of those ones that's it's going to test you. It's going to test him to see if he'll be able to do it. 615-737-1025. We'll get more reaction, but Mark Howard will give his reaction next. What did Mark Howard think of the game last night? We'll have Mark Howard join us here on the program. ESPN 94.9 is the home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tonight, the Sounds open a 6-game homestand at First Horizon Park against the Gwinnett Stripers, the AAA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. I will be going, I believe, to a Sounds game on Saturday. And you might see me at the Sounds game. Pre-game with Jeff Him begins at 6:20. First pitch, 6:35. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 is presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and 312 Pizza Company. Stillman Company, Mark Howard next. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
The Carolina Hurricanes get 3 third-period goals and win Game 1 by a 5-2 score.
Yeah, I mean, we came in and we had a lot of guys that have made cases for themselves to play, and obviously the group tonight didn't get it done. So, we have some guys that are not in the lineup that we know are ready to play and can really contribute. So that's all part of the process. We came into Game 1. We did some good things, 2-2 tie game going in the third period. We didn't find a way to win it. So now we'll just go right through the evaluation process on the game, on our lineup, evaluate the players tonight, and go from there.
I was John Hines. Game 1, Predators fall 5-2. Do you buy in? Because I guess I struggle with John Hines. Mark Howard will join us here in just a second. I guess I struggle with kind of the, it was one game, you lost the one game, and I try to figure whether or not I'm living in the moment. If I'm just so caught up in last night's game, because I did think when Philip Forsberg scored to make it 1-0, and I did think when it was 2-2 going to the third period, I did think, hey, can they pull this out? Because people forget in 2017, pulling it out was the key to beating the Chicago Blackhawks in that series. They pulled out Game 1. They pulled it out. They were outshot 29-20. They scored 1 goal, but they played tight hockey. They only committed 2 penalties for the entire game. I mean, I felt, in that game, I felt pretty good about, hey, if you just pull this one out, could this be like the Chicago series part 2? And then when they ended up getting blasted in the third period, there's a part of me that maybe resents that or is more angry about it because it felt like they were so close. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It was just, I think it's frustrating because the Predators did play so well in the first period, and it's also so frustrating because last night just kind of confirmed everything that I thought this series was going to go. And I kind of had some very wishful thinking that they could pull it out in Game 1 and get that good momentum and take away the momentum from Carolina early. But I think last night just solidified that the Hurricanes are just a much better team than the Predators. And I'm not saying that, okay, the series is over and let's throw in the towel, good job Predators, good season, because no, there's potentially 6 games left. But last night, I think, exposed a lot of my concerns about the Predators.
So I'm with you in that regard. I also have just been kind of scrolling through the text line. Boy, the text line is fired up about the lineup. I mean, they want to bench everybody, or they want to play everybody. The text line wants Rocco. Rocco Grimaldi. Again, the problem is their guys are big, strong, fast, and good. Rocco is one of those things, maybe, fast. He's not big. He's not strong. He's not good. He's not defensively sound. He's not any of those things. Rocco's not. I saw somebody said they wanted Ryan Ellis to be sat on the bench. I'm like, you're not sitting Ryan Ellis on the bench. Will you play Eric Goodbranson some more?
Like, I think fans are so fired up about the lineup because the fans were able to see what some of the guys who weren't in the lineup last night were able to do to get the Predators to this point. So they kind of feel almost this like allegiance to the young guys who got them here. And then all of a sudden the lineup was shaken up and things weren't how they were quote unquote supposed to be. So I understand their frustration. It's like, I'm not good with change. I don't like if things work, don't fix it. And I think that's kind of how fans feel about the lineup last night.
Well, I feel like he overcoached. He
tried to do too much.
He had to do something. Like, he had to go out there and do something to press the right button to win the game. And, hey, if they had won, we'd be saying that was great coaching. Well, just like we did when Laviolette changed the lineup in 2017 and put in Harry Zolnarchuk. And we thought, what the hell are they doing over there? And then all of a sudden it worked. So maybe that's where we are there. I don't know. We are still efforting Mark Howard along here with his thoughts on game number 1. But again, the lineup, I thought Hines screwed up. I think he rolled the dice. I think it ultimately blew up in his face. Mm-hmm. And I don't look at it as any more than that. But I was just scrolling through the text line. It was like, bench this guy, sit this guy, play this guy. I'm like, hey, we got to, Carolina's supposed to be better than the Predators. They're one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the NHL. They are supposed to be there. So I guess I struggle with getting there exactly. What else do we have in the text line?
Another texter texted in and said Ryan Ellis should be sat the rest of the series to kind of go off the fact that, like, the text line is just not so pleased about the Predators lineup. Another texter said the lineup that Hines put out was not good enough. That's on him. He needs to put the best players on the ice. Then if they're not good enough, it is on the players and Poyle. But last night was on some players.
If they lose the series, it'll be on Poyle. Mark Howard joins us now on the program with his reaction to game number 1. Mark, the fans are all over the place, especially with Hines on the lineup or certain guys with effort level. And what did you make of the Preds' loss last night in game number 1?
Yeah, I don't really think that the lineup had a lot to do with why the Predators lost. I think Carolina was ready. I think they were ready to play a physical game. They actually out-hit the Predators. And I think familiarity hurt the Predators in this particular case. They weren't going to take Carolina by surprise. Even after 40 minutes, the stats were tilted in Carolina's favor. So it was hardly a surprise that the Hurricanes won the third period. But your good players have to play better. Yossi and Ryan Ellis did not play very well last night, or Ekholm for that matter. But Yossi had a terrible game. And sometimes plus-minus doesn't reveal, just how you played. But he was -3 last night for sure. That showed up on the scoreboard.
We were talking about this earlier, but it feels like in order to play the kind of game John Hines wants, it's got to be that kind of Barry Trotz hockey, muck it up, good goaltending, pack it in, very compact. Do you think that they can actually do that against Carolina, or is Carolina too good for that?
I don't think you can win that way. I think you can maybe beat them, once, maybe twice, but you're not going to win a series that way. You can win a game that way. But last night it just showed that Carolina has so much depth. The Jordan Stahl play, splitting Yossi and Ekholm for that second goal was just unbelievable. I mean, it absolutely knocked the Predators back on their heels. But the third goal, you can't leave Mito Niederreiter alone in the slot. I don't know what Johansson was doing, but or Yossi for that matter. But you can't leave a player like Niederreiter, wide open like that. I thought that UC Saros played well enough to win, but yeah, I think they could play that style, Jared. But I also think in the long run, that's not going to get them where they want to go.
What do you think the fair level of reaction is to game number 1? You've been doing this for a long time, Mark. You know that you lose a game and it feels so much more magnified. It's like football season. You lose week 1, and some people are like, there goes the season. And it's like, calm down, calm down. I still think if they take game 2, then they've got maybe a chance, although I feel less about it after Greg Wyshynski came on the show and said no, even if they take game 2. What do you think the fair level of reaction should be towards the loss last night?
Well, I think that the charges of coaching malpractice by John Hines is ridiculous. We know what he was trying to do, but much like my cardiologist will tell me, too much beef is never good, and that's what we saw last night. The addition of Olivier, in the long run, as we found out, just didn't work. And a team like Carolina's got a Stanley Cup caliber team. They can beat you playing physical. They can play you, a speed game. The Predators can really only beat you one way. And I just think that in this particular case, people overreacted to? People overreacted to last weekend. People overreacted to those 2 wins over Carolina when it didn't mean a flip to them. And then we saw last night what happened when the Hurricanes got serious again. And I mentioned it when I was out with Rexroad last Thursday and Friday. People were going to get too crazy over those last 2 games and just normally assume that the Predators were going to be able, to play with them on an even keel, and they just couldn't do it last night. So you can't be fooled into thinking that it was just the third period. Yeah, too many Preds players, took the night off. The Grantland, Cunnin, Yarncroke line didn't show up. I mean, 0 shots. The penalty kill was good, obviously 5 for 5, but the power play was non-existent. The Predators need every edge to beat Carolina, and last night you saw. I mean, they're going to be able to hang with Carolina for 40 minutes sometimes on just about every occasion. But it's going to sort of be like the year the Predators beat the Red Wings 4-1. All the games were close, but Bob Babcock or Mike Babcock said after the game, he was the coach of the Red Wings at the time, in reality it wasn't really close. And that's what this series could end up looking like.
Mark Howard with us. Okay, what good did you like from last night?
I like their compete level. I mean, the Preds came out and they tried to play a physical game, and they did a decent job. But time and time again, Carolina was able to smother them in the neutral zone. Carolina's forecheck really bothered the Preds, and that's what we found out. They put a lot of pressure on the Preds D-men, and all 6 of them coughed it up. I mean, all 6 of them had trouble, but the third D pairing has got to be changed, and I'm sure, that's going to happen too. You just sort of figure it out as you go along. But these series, as we've learned in the past, are all about adjustments. And Carolina, you look at them. From their first line to their fourth line, I mean, they are really, really good. And we got a taste of it last night.
Mark Howard is with us. Is it wrong, going back to Hines, I'm with you. I don't think that what Hines did was criminal. I said on Friday when he hinted with you guys on Friday that he may put Ellie Tolvanen down. I said I disagree with it. Not that I think he's crazy for doing it. I disagree with putting Fabro and Ellie Tolvanen down. But don't you, I still feel like Hines is a little culpable. Not 100%, not 50%, but if there was a blame pie, I think he deserves a slice. Do you feel that same way as far as the lineup was concerned? Because that third pair was terrible last night.
Well, I mean, ultimately the coach is going to fall on the coach. And Hines knows that. And I think he knows that, the second game, that lineup is going to look different than it did last night. And again, he sort of felt like playing a physical game gave them maybe the best chance of beating Carolina. They felt like if they came out, they could maybe, run Carolina around a little bit, but that wasn't the case. Carolina showed that they can play physically, and they answered it.
Mark Howard with us. Okay, we'll turn our attention to Game 2. Mark's going to stay with us. I want your opinions on what the Predators have to do to win Game 2 and how much that would mean getting back in the series. That's next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Mark Howard is with us. Stillman Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving on ESPN 1025 The Game.
I think the core principle here, was last night after the game, and a lot of the themes of the questions are some of the guys that are in or out. But I'll go back to it. The players that we count on every single game here, there needs to be an elevation in their game, and when that happens, the players that play big minutes, the players that play tough matchups, the players that you're never really considering taking in or out of the lineup, there needs to be an elevation in their game, and that's how you win. That's how you win in the playoffs. Those guys have to be able to produce, and then when you make these other lineup changes, there are additions to that, but the main group here needs to be better.
There you go. That was John Hines. When John Hines was hired, David Poile said the players that are supposed to be good players aren't playing well enough as a group, and that's why he made the change. And here you are in the playoffs, game one. The players that are supposed to be good players are not playing that way, and John Hines needs them to play better. Mark Howard is with us. So, Mark, let's turn our attention to game two. And I look at game two, and I think, hey, losing game one on the road is not the end of a playoff series. We've seen time and time again, not for the Predators, but for other teams, where you just take one on the road and you keep on trucking. You go back home, you win at home, and you turn that series around. Do you think that a win in game two would make everything all well and good going into game three at home?
Well, maybe, we're so in the moment when it comes to the playoffs. So obviously, if they won game two, they'd have home ice advantage, at least going into game three. Mm-hmm. That would make everybody happy. No question about that.
What do you think has to happen in order for them to beat Carolina in game two?
Well, I think, first of all, they have to handle Carolina's pressure better, their forecheck. They also have to do a better job of hunting pucks in their own end. Carolina did a good job of chipping and chasing and extending their time in the offensive zone by winning those battles, getting the puck in and then, retrieving the puck behind the net. So they've got to do better in that regard. And I just think that Hines is going to tinker with his lineup. He's in my opinion, he's probably got to blow up that second line and maybe put Granlund with Duchesne and Tolvin in, and then figure out what he's going to do for a third line. But it's all in how you tinker with your lineup. We always see this. We always see coaches, bringing players, into the mix to try to give their team energy. And the Predators have to play with a little more desperation. We saw that with Carolina. That they came out last night, and really, like I said, it was 2-2 after 2, but Carolina, as we saw, had the edge in shots on goal, hits, scoring chances, and after a while, that's going to take a toll on you. And Ellie Tolvanen, I thought for the most part, we not seeing Tolvanen definitely didn't help things. But UC Saros, I thought, played well enough for them to win. But he just can't be expected, to make, some of those secondary saves after the initial save last night. The third goal was pretty much a case in point. Made a great save, but then the puck got loose behind the net, and we saw Niederreiter all alone in front. That fourth goal was just a tough goal. That's why they always tell you there's no such thing as a bad shot, because that thing had eyes, and it managed to trickle through, and that was it.
Mark Howard's our guest. Mark, John Hines kind of hinted today at being open to the idea of splitting up Yossi and Ellis. Would you do that in game two?
Yeah, I don't think anything's off the table. I was really surprised. Yossi has to play better. That's the other thing. If Yossi doesn't play better, they don't have much of a chance, because Yossi's going to log 24 minutes of ice time like he did last night, and he can't be doing what he did. And, if there's one sort of, negative aspect, to Yossi's career, he hasn't always been great in the postseason. But last night, especially, one of the worst games I've ever seen him play since he's become an elite defenseman.
Is it wrong for me to look at Ryan Ellis? And I was talking with somebody about this today, and it's that when I think of Ryan Ellis in the playoffs, I think about Blake Wheeler and those big forwards from Winnipeg just swallowing him up in the defensive zone and just throwing him around. And we all remember what Jamie Benn did to him in the Dallas series, when he had him in the corner and just moved him aside like a rag doll. And I thought last night Ellis's size was a problem. And I thought Carolina kind of pushed him around. And I wonder if he can play against those top-end forwards on good teams, on cup-contending teams in the playoffs, or maybe he's just better off being a second-pair guy.
It's a good question. And, on some nights he can. And one of the things that was remarkable about a younger Ryan Ellis was the way that he handled, as Barry Trotz used to say, the way he handled weight. That he could go up against bigger players and be successful. But sometimes, I still don't believe that Ellis is 5'10", but that's just me. But suddenly if a defenseman is 5'9", it becomes a huge liability. I think you understand what I'm saying. So I don't know, but whatever the case, yeah, I mean that's a fair assessment. I think there are some nights when Ellis has a hard time against heavier teams.
What do you make of Johansson last night?
I thought he was okay. I thought he made a great play on that, on the Forsberg goal. So that was a good sign for me. I thought he played fine. I didn't have a huge problem with Joey last night. I thought he was, he had the lapse in the defensive end though on that third goal. No question about that. But I thought by and large in the defensive end he played okay.
I just wonder if fans maybe point the finger at Johansson anytime something happens and he's involved in it. Like that the expectations for Johansson are so high and they haven't been met for so long that there's like anger at Johansson anytime something goes wrong and he's involved in it at all.
Yeah, he's never going to make his living on his defensive play.
True.
Crispy would say last night he needed to have his head on a swivel and know that Niederreiter was right there, about 2 feet from his right shoulder. And, that's how Carolina went ahead in the game. And really that goal changed the game. And I'm sure Joey would tell you that some of that's on him.
I asked John Hines today, Mark Howard's our guest. I asked John Hines today about Duchesne, who I think saw the least amount of ice time in 5-on-5 last night. Ian brought up, kind of wondering why Duchesne is not on the power play unit. And John Hines did say that he thinks he's going to need to get Matt Duchesne in the game more in game 2. Mark, I'm looking at Duchesne, and I'm like, I feel like they need to play him. And we need to figure out, okay, is this guy overrated and kind of a bust of a signing, or can this guy, do what he did a couple of years ago against Tampa Bay? But for some reason, it feels like Hines is a little reluctant to trust Duchesne. What do you think about that?
I was surprised last night because I went back and watched because, as you said, most of the forwards had 21 or 22 shifts, and Duchesne only had 16. And I thought, he must have played like crap then, but he really didn't. He made a really nice play on the Haula goal, and you can really start to expect too much sometimes in the defensive end from a guy like Duchesne. But he wasn't the reason why they lost the game, and I agree with you. If you're paying the guy $8 million a year, you can't bury him on the third line and not give him power play opportunities. I mean, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, if he doesn't start scoring.
Last one for you, Mark Howard. If the Predators win Game 2, how will they have to do it?
Again, I think they're going to have to play from ahead a little bit longer, and I think puck possession. I thought Carolina dominated the third period. And the Preds were just, after 2 periods, you just sort of felt like the Preds were playing with fire. And I just think, they've got to step it up. They can't get out hit. They've got to be a little bit smarter and not give this team 5 power play opportunities because they'll get buried if that's the case. So they've got to be a little bit smarter, and they've got to handle Carolina's pressure.
Mark Howard, he is one of the best in the business, as always, Mark. We will talk soon.
All right, bud. Thanks.
Yep, Mark Howard. I absolutely love talking to Mark Howard. I will say this. I have been watching and listening to Mark Howard since I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I will tell you that there is nobody that I like talking to when something bad happens to the Titans or the Predators. There is nobody I like talking to more than Mark Howard. Now, when something good happens to the Titans or the Predators, I still like talking to Mark Howard, but nothing like I like talking to Mark Howard when things are bad.
I feel like the inflection in his voice is the same, whether it's good or bad, and it's hilarious.
I will say this. I mean, I do feel like Mark, man, he was unfiltered right there, which is, of course, how we like our people on our show.
Absolutely.
Coming
is an
up
unfiltered
next.
show.
Coming up next. Well, we'll have Hal on at 5:30. We'll see. But coming up next here on the program, 3 up, 3 down. 3 things we liked from last night's game, and let me set for the record. It's hard to find 3. 3 things we like from last night's game, 3 things we did not like from last night's game. That is next. Stillman Company, it is a reaction game day to the Predators, down 0-1 to Carolina, game 2 tomorrow. We'll see. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman Company, delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game. Mark Howard, maybe change my list a little bit. Maybe. Hal Gill will join us in less than 30 minutes, and I'm sure that it will be a war between Hal and I.
I wish we had both Hal and Mark on at the same time.
I don't know. I don't think they'd get into it. I think you're thinking they'd get into it. I don't think they'd get into it.
Oh, well, I just want someone to get into it.
But I think Hal and I've got, hey, you know what? I got questions for Hal.
Oh.
I got questions for Hal.
Boy.
We're going to have to talk with Hal.
Look out, Nashville. We've got questions.
So Hal Gill going to join us at 5:30. But it is time now for 3 Up, 3 Down. The 3 things we liked, the 3 things we did not like from yesterday's game. We will continue to do this throughout the Predators, just like we've done for years regarding the Titans. Every time the Titans have a game, 3 things we want to see, 3 things we don't want to see, 3 things we like, 3 things we don't like. So we get right into it with the first thing I liked from last night's game.
Number 1.
I'm going to let you all take a guess what the number 1 thing I liked was.
The first period.
No. Ian?
I had something. No giving up a power play goal.
Actually, no, you guys are thinking too hard. Saros, number 1. I thought Saros last night was really good. And it'll get lost because it was an under 9 save percentage. And you see that, and it's like, well, obviously, he didn't stop 90% of the shots he faced, so he obviously didn't play very well. I thought Saros played really well last night. I mean, that save on Trocheck last night, if they end up winning the game and they don't turn around and give up a goal right there, that save might be the save of the game. The way that he played last night. I thought Saros was really good. Saros was good enough to win games in this series if the team does their part. Now, again, that's not stealing a game. That's playing at the level that you need to play at. I thought he did that last night. He probably's got to ratchet it up a little bit more where somehow, some way, he makes a save on something that maybe he shouldn't. I thought the first goal was a bad bounce. I thought the second goal was a great shot. I thought the third goal was a complete and total defensive breakdown around him. I thought the fourth goal was a good shot, and maybe he could have made the save, and then the fifth goal was an empty netter. I thought Saros was good last night, and I know that when you give up 5 goals or your team loses, nobody wants to sit there and talk about the goalie, but I did have questions about Saros because for years we've seen Pekka Rinne in big moments in the playoffs, and we've seen Pekka good and bad in the playoffs. I mean, Pekka has certainly been all throughout the spectrum. We've seen Saros in mop-up duty in the playoffs, and we saw last year in the bubble where I didn't think he brought his A game. Last night, I thought UC Saros played well enough for this team to win. I think that's the kind of game he's got to play for this team. And if he's going to be the long-term answer at goalie, you're going to have to play at that level in the playoffs. Maybe there's another level for him, but I thought he was the best player on the team last night. Saros was the number 1 thing that I liked.
To Ian's point, the number 1 thing that I wrote down was penalty kill.
Well, we'll get to that. Number 2.
Number 2.
They did not completely melt when Carolina took the momentum. Carolina, I was worried on that fluky, bouncy kind of goal. I was worried that all of a sudden it was going to just rain you-know-what on the Predators as soon as that happened. And it didn't. They fought back in the first period. Now, I didn't like the second period. I didn't like the third period. But the one thing about the Predators, and maybe this is more so than other teams, but over the last 4 or 5 years, it feels like when something bad happens, everybody just throws their hands up, puts their tail between their legs, and drops their head. And I was worried that was going to happen to them last night. There was a funky, weird bounce in Game 1 of the Arizona series where I think it was like off of a Ekman-Larsson stick, off of Ellis's pad, over Saros's head, into the net, and it's like everybody on the team just put their head down after that moment. Or in Game 3 last year, Matt Duchene was offsides on what could have been the go-ahead goal, the game-winning goal, and everybody put their head down after that. We haven't seen a ton of fight back from the Predators over the years. I really liked last night that they didn't completely fall apart when Carolina took the momentum. It's going to be a momentum game. That crowd on the road in Raleigh, it's going to be a momentum game. You score, you'll get the momentum. They'll have momentum. You can't cripple because Carolina's not. You cannot fall apart underneath the momentum. And that takes me to my third thing.
Number 3.
I was torn. I was really torn for 2 reasons. One, I thought it was good seeing a crowd in Carolina. I thought that was nice to see. Again, and I'm not one of these people that believes that COVID is gone and that COVID's a hoax or anything like that. I mean, I think COVID's still serious. I think it's still around. I think everyone should get their shots, whatever. But I put Matt Duchene at 3. Surprising?
Yes. But also, I do appreciate you for giving credit where credit is due with Matt Duchene.
Play the man. I mean, you know what? Here's the thing about Matt Duchene. And it is, do I think Matt Duchene's ever going to live up to the hype? No, I don't. But you paid him to do a job. Let him do the job. I thought the assist he had on the Holla goal last night, I thought that was a really good pass. I thought Duchene held his own. I know this. I know that Matt Duchene led a team to an unprecedented sweep in 2019 of a really freaking good Tampa Bay Lightning team. I can't say that about Colton Sissons. I can't say that about Tanner Jeannot. I can't say that about Mikhail Granlund. I can't say that about Calle Yarncroke. I can't say that about anybody on this team except for, shockingly, Ryan Johansson 2017, although Pekka really led that team, and Duchene in 2019. I think what's going to happen if they lose this series is fans are going to be very upset with David Poile. And I think the Poile discussion, I think it's coming. It's not here yet, but I think it becomes an issue if they lose this series and they are totally outclassed and out-talented. Then it's like, wait a minute, these guys are making all this money. This team's not competitive. They're not what? I think that's going to be a discussion. This is probably the biggest bet Poile's made. Let him play. Put him out there. Let him go. I thought Duchene last night was okay. So that's how hard it was to find 3 things that I liked, that I truly liked. I mean, you guys brought up the penalty kill. I mean, they didn't give up a power play goal, but I didn't like the fact that they took so many penalties they did take.
But I think, like we said yesterday, look, that the Predators had to hold the Hurricanes to 2 power plays.
Yeah.
Because I did not think that the Predators were going to be able to defend more than that because Carolina has one of the best power plays in the league. But I was impressed that they held them to 4.
When Calle Yarncroke took that guy out, they called an embellishment on that, which I didn't think was an embellishment.
That saved the Predators.
I saw that and I thought, oh, crap. Here you go. 3 things we didn't like. Number 1. Roman Josi. I can get into all the guys who are supposed to be good players that didn't play well last night. Roman Josi is the team captain. He was -3 last night. This was an uncharacteristically bad game from Roman Josi. Here's the truth. We talked about this yesterday. It's like, if you don't do this, then what? If you don't do X, Y, you lose. If Roman Josi plays that terribly ever again in this series, you lose. If he plays that way in Game 2, you lose. Game 3, you lose. Game 4, you lose. I love Roman Josi. He's a great player. In fact, I need Roman to elevate his game because I don't know where goals are coming for the Predators, so maybe he's got to be one to find them. But I thought last night he was awful. And as I think everybody knows that I get on Ellis all the time, and I used to get on Turris all the time, and I get on Ellis, and I get on Duchene or Johansson, and I get on those guys. Josi is a different category. He's held to a higher standard, and last night he was not good. And to me, that was the number 1 thing I didn't like because you have no prayer. John Hines can screw up the lineup, and you can still win a game. You have no shot of winning if Roman Josi plays like that.
Number 2.
The guys who are supposed to be good that just keep getting chances and aren't good. Ryan Ellis, how many times in the playoffs? I knew that I was right about this when I was talking to people today. And I was like, am I the only one that feels like every year in the playoffs we have to have a discussion about Ryan Ellis getting pushed around? I remember the Dallas series when he got just crushed by Jamie Benn. I mean, embarrassed. And he looked like nothing out there. And everybody said, Jared, he was hurt. He was hurt. Don't get all worked up. He was hurt. Okay. And they paid him all this money. And sometimes he'll put up some points, assists, goals. And people say, see, Jared, he's turned into kind of Kyle Turris. Anytime he scores, everyone wants to tweet me, Arvidsson. And they're like, they're like, hey, Jared, what do you think now? I think it's the same. I think he's too small. I think he's too fragile. I think he's too slow. I don't think his shot is accurate enough on the offensive end. And I think when it comes to the big boy forwards, the real big, the meat, I think he's too slow for those guys, and I think he's too small for those guys. I think Arvidsson is in a similar boat, a guy that they pay money to, that they need to play well. Arvidsson, I think he is too small, and now I think he's been too hurt over the years. I don't think he's an effective player in the playoffs anymore. At this point, I wouldn't scratch him because I don't know who I'd put in there for him. Like, I'm not expecting Brad Richardson to enter the lineup and make a huge difference, but I don't think there's a lot that Arvidsson gives you. If I had to pick between Yarncroke or Arvidsson, it'd be Yarncroke in a second. And Arvidsson's a guy who's supposed to be good. Johansson, Duchesne, we've gone over these guys. They're supposed to be the good players. This team's not going to rely on beating the Carolina Hurricanes because Alexander Carrier plays his butt off. It's not going to happen. So, again, the guys that are paid to be the good players need to be the good players. And right now, it just seems like every year in the playoffs we keep saying the same thing.
Number 3.
Third thing I didn't like, John Hines. And I first guessed it on Friday. I did not like the decision to bench Eeli Tolvanen and Dante Fabro. And then when I saw it on ice, I liked it even less. And then after the game, I didn't love the fact. And I can't tell if Hines was just being brutally honest with us or if he was trying to deflect. But I didn't love the fact that Hines wouldn't put his hand up and say, hey, I've got to coach better. Now, Vrabel does it every time they lose. Vrabel just comes out and says, got to play better, got to coach better. I got to coach. Starts with me, I got to coach better. So much so that it's almost inauthentic when Mike Vrabel says it. With Hines, it was kind of defensive last night about the lineup. And I mean, again, somebody's got to explain to me how it makes sense to take a guy with talent out of the lineup to put in a guy who stinks. Or I shouldn't say stinks. That's too personal. A guy who doesn't have a lot of talent. Ben Harper doesn't have a lot of talent. Eric Goodbranson doesn't have a lot of talent. They didn't even give up anything to get Eric Goodbranson. Those guys don't. Dante Fabro is a first-round pick. You played Dante Fabro in a couple of NHL games, and you put him out in the playoffs when you thought you were a cup contender. Why was he not out there? Why was Eeli Tolvanen, the guy offensively who turned your season around, why was he not out there? And I don't believe that action should have no consequence. So I understand John Hines, and his argument is that that's not why they lost. And I don't completely agree, but I agree with the meat of it. I agree with 75% of it. But I would have liked maybe a little bit more accountability from the coach after the game, after he made a very questionable decision on the front end that everybody was questioning when he hinted that he would make it, then he did it, then it didn't work. And the other thing is Hines wanted to go in there and set the tone. He wanted to go in there and he wanted to go knock out the Carolina Hurricanes. And they out-hit the Predators by 7 last night. So whatever you were preaching did not get through.
And I think one thing last night that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way was John Hines continuing to say, well, it was 2-2 going into the third period.
Right.
I don't
as if I care about your halftime score.
Right, exactly. Like I see where he was going with that. You know, like we were neck and neck with them for 2 periods. Yeah, I get it. But when you look at the standings, you don't look at it and say, oh, well, you know, Nashville lost the first game, but they were 2-2 at the third period. That doesn't matter. It gets to a certain point when you're in the playoffs and every single game matters and every single win matters. I don't care what the score was going into the third period. I care what the score was at the buzzer, and it was 5-2.
I think that was his way of saying, hey, we competed with them for 2 periods with that lineup, so it's not the lineup, it's the guys out there who didn't get it done in the third period.
I see where he's coming from.
I don't need to hear that 7 times. You
Right.
made your point. I got it. Let's go.
Right.
615-737-1025. Your reaction. We'll get to that. Plus, we'll do some of the headlines with Caroline. We'll get into that coming up next. We're live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Hal Gill. I do need some optimism in this series. Greg Wyshynski didn't really give it to me.
Nope.
Mark Howard didn't really give it to me.
Not at all.
You two are not giving it to me.
Sorry.
We know I'm not giving it to me.
Absolutely not.
Maybe Hal will give that to me at 5:30. 615-737-1025. Stillman Company. We're live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. I need to tell the people, I believe, about Pick to Click, right? I think I do. About Robbie and Rexroad and the fact that they, just because the regular hockey season is over, they are not done picking and they are not done clicking. Tune into Robbie and Rexro this Friday morning at 9:45 for your chance to participate in Nashville SC Pick to Click. You can win a prize pack and a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game brought to you by our friends at Camarena Tequila. Stillman Company, we're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman Company. We were talking about you, Ian.
That's okay.
All nice things.
She says that, but who knows. But it is time now. Hal Gill going to join us in less than 10 minutes, but it is time for headlines with Caroline.
Worst headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk,
ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Some Preds roster news today. David Poile announced that the Predators will be recalling first-round pick Philip Tomasino from Chicago. So he'll begin skating with the non-game group.
Right.
But I feel like this is a step in the right direction.
So I found that to be odd in the news release that they said that he'll be skating with the non-game group, which I think was kind of like a megaphone way of saying he's not going to play in game 2.
He's not going to Raleigh.
But is he not going to play at all? And he's probably not. You know, they call these the Black Aces, where after the minor league season's over, they call all the guys up. And it's different this year because they have the taxi squad. But this is how all of a sudden, you know, Pontus Aberg makes his NHL debut in game 4 of a Stanley Cup playoff game in the second round kind of thing. I would say this. There was a part of me that saw that and wondered if Poyle looked at this roster and said, I need more talent to compete with Carolina. We know Tomasino is talented. But to me, that'd be a hot take to put him out there for his first NHL action ever against the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Poyle and Hines, they've done some crazy stuff in the past, but this would be something.
And I don't know if this was me reading too in between the lines, but I thought it was interesting that the press release also did say that he will report directly to Nashville.
Right, like they're not in Nashville.
Right.
Like I wondered, like when I read that, and I sometimes read, like, even though it's a mass email, I read it as if it's read to me. And I'm like, I almost felt like that was like, Jared.
He's not playing game 2.
Not going to play. But I want to see Tomasino. Put Tomasino out there. If I get a say in it, Tomasino might be playing. What's next?
Pekka Rinne was nominated for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy. So I had never heard of this trophy before, but it is awarded to the player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice and has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution in his community. So each team votes for their own team respectively. They vote on one player, and the winner of the award gets $25,000 donated to the charity of that player's choice. So big feather in Pekka Rinne's cap. What I love about this team is that there are so many guys that can perform on the ice, but also do so many things off the ice as well. I
think Pekka Rinne should win it, and I'll take it a step further. If he wins it, I will make a large donation to the Preds 365 Fund, which he co-founded with Shea Weber. I will make a large donation to the Preds 365 Fund if Pekka Rinne wins the King Clancy Memorial Trophy Award, whatever it is.
Clancy Memorial Trophy.
I will make a large donation because I do think what's crazy is you think of everything Pekka's accomplished on the ice and what he's done for the city, you know, being the player he is and how people love hockey because of the success that Pekka has really brought the franchise. But, you know, Pekka's not one to toot his own horn, but that 365 Fund, that thing is a mammoth, you know, in terms of what they do in the community. And so, I mean, I saw that today, and every year there's somebody who's recognized or nominated for it. And I'm like, you know what? I really hope Pekka wins it. I really, really do, because I do think he deserves it.
We've been talking a lot of hockey today, so I have a little bit of a football chaser for you.
Fire it to me.
Some Titans rookie minicamp news. The Titans have signed wide receiver out of Vanderbilt, Kalijah Lipscomb. The Titans also waived wide receiver Rashard Davis. Kalijah Lipscomb, 6'1", 201 pounds. In his collegiate career, he had 198 receptions, 2,356 receiving yards, and 22 touchdowns in his 4 years at Vandy. Done a lot of reading about him, and people are saying, had a pretty decent college career. Don't feel great about the odds of him eventually staying with the Titans, even though it's a position of need for the Titans. But definitely think that the Titans are looking in the right direction and getting a pass catcher.
I saw a move for a pass catcher yesterday. Ian, I don't know if you saw this, and this would be very off-brand for me. Did you see what the Kansas City Chiefs did yesterday, Ian?
The Chiefs? No, I do not.
Did you see what the Kansas City Chiefs did yesterday?
I didn't.
Oh, actually, I do. I do
move.
now. Tajay Sharp.
They cut Tajay Sharp. Now, we know I do not like Tajay Sharp, and Tajay Sharp does not like me. That has been well established. But I look at the depth at receiver, and I'm wondering if they should bring Tajay Sharp back.
Interesting.
And I can't stand Tajay Sharp. I don't think he can run. I don't think he's a great blocker. I think he loses his cool a little too much. I think he's very overrated. But Tajay Sharp, and he went right to Minnesota, immediately got cut. Goes to the Chiefs, gets cut. Tajay Sharp, veteran minimum deal. You know he knows the playbook. You know he can play for Vrabel. And at least he's a body. Like, at least he's a guy who's caught the ball in the NFL before.
I mean, is that how desperate the Titans are for a pass catcher?
Yes.
They're just signing bodies?
Well, I mean, a body is Kalijah Lipscomb, because I don't even know if he's an NFL player.
I am.
Tajay Sharp, I think I'd consider it. And again, this is coming from somebody who does not like Tajay Sharp, and who Tajay has made it very clear does not like me. I think I would.
Is there a story behind this?
He wanted to be all tough guy on Twitter. And,
keyboard warrior.
And I don't know. Well, I'm not going to call that because I don't know Tajay like that. And he did get, I think he was arrested in a bar fight one time after they drafted Corey Davis. So I didn't really want to push the envelope, a little bit further than I already had. I mean, I don't care what Tajay Sharp thinks, but I didn't want to push the envelope further. Like, I don't want to make things personal in the job.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's not personal because here I am saying Tajay Sharp. Tajay Sharp. That I would do it. And I don't think Tajay Sharp's very good, but that's where I would.
At this point,
go.
it's not about talent.
They don't have any.
It's just about people on the field who can catch balls.
Tajay Sharp. Those are headlines with Caroline. Hal Gill. I need some optimism after game one. Hal Gill will join us next. Stillman Company. We are delivered by TriStar Moving right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman Company, ESPN 102.5 The Game. I'm in a good mood. I've turned into Santa Claus. I want a little optimism after talking about the Predators for the last 3.5 hours and being down on it. And Greg Wyshynski saying no chance to win the series, and that did not.
He said it so convincingly, too.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
we were silly for even thinking so.
If they win Game 2, do they have a chance? Nope, says Greg Wyshynski. Let's go ahead and give something away. And we'll give something away next segment, too, because we're really nice. Hey, Smashville, get in the game Nashville, and Dos Equis is bringing the party to you. Text the word GOLDEN to 615-737-1025 to qualify for the ultimate in-home watch party. And did I mention one lucky fan is getting tickets to a playoff game at Bridgestone Arena? Get a dose. Smashville must be 21 and older to enter and win. Enjoy Dos Equis responsibly. Hal Gill joins us on the show, presented by Duncan, featuring the new location in Belle Meade and TriStar Moving. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, I need some optimism after Game 1. I'm not feeling great. There's a lot of things I didn't like about Game 1. I thought the goaltending was good. I thought outside of that, the Predators didn't really answer the bell when they needed to last night. Lay it on me, please.
All right, well, I'll start off with, first of all, thanks for having me on the show.
It's always our pleasure.
I'll start off with, Jared, what were your expectations? Did you think it was just going to be like, hey, we're just going to go score a bunch of goals and win a game? Or did you think it was going to be a complete battle and all the way to the finish? I mean, you set your expectations.
I think that's a good question.
You're going into a building that just got fans in there, and so they're 12,000 strong, and they're jacked up, and this is a good team. Carolina Hurricanes are first in the division for a reason. They're good. They're big. They're fast. They're strong. And I thought the Preds actually kind of dictated the game. I think in the beginning of the second period, they kind of felt the wrath that the Canes, they kind of weathered the storm. But they go into that game, into that third period, and it's 2-2. I thought that's exactly what they wanted, and they just couldn't finish it off. They couldn't find a way to generate scoring chances. I think the fight was for the middle of the ice in the slot, and I think the Canes are really good at protecting it, and I think in the other end, they're really good at attacking it, and so that's exactly what they did, and they edged the Preds out. But that's Game 1. That's why that's why you play 2 games on the road and then 2 games at home, and you go back and forth, and so as a player's perspective, you put that behind, you learn from it, and you go forward and you move on. And as the coaches are going to look at it, they're going to break down film. They're going to say, all right, we need to adjust our game plan this way and adjust our personnel this way, and that's how they're going to go about their business. But I thought it was, to be honest with you, a pretty good effort up until that third. It kind of got away from them, but that's what you expect from a good team.
So you asked me kind of what my expectations were, and I'm with you. I mean, I think Carolina's a better team, and I think Carolina is a really good team, and we've got to tip our caps to them. But 2-2 going to the third, I looked at it as a golden opportunity for the Predators to find a way, get one goal, and then kind of clamp down and let Saros go to work. And they didn't give Saros that opportunity. And I wonder if that was kind of one of those, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And that's what Carolina did last night, and maybe flex that muscle that maybe makes me, Hal, look at this series like, man, when it really got to the nitty-gritty, they really knocked the Predators off of it last night.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what this team is they'll stay in the fight, and they play a good, solid system, and they wait for their chances. They don't necessarily force anything, and they waited for the right opportunity, and then the bottom line is playmakers made plays. And you look at Jordan Staal, going in, and that was an amazing goal that he scored, splitting the D and then shooting at Roof from the goal line. Those are the kind of plays that you just kind of wait to happen, and the Preds couldn't find a way to make that happen. And then, in the other end, they made those plays. So, in the end, it's on the road, and those plays are going to happen, and it's a good team, and you you lick your wounds and go back at them the next night.
Hal, I'm going to make an assumption about your career that I think is true, that in large part, one of the strengths of your game was your size, correct?
Yes.
I look at Ryan Ellis out there when it gets into the playoffs, and I see these big forwards that these other teams have. And we're talking about the top teams. I mean, Jamie Benn, Tyler Sagan, those are top players. Blake Wheeler, Winnipeg 2018, that's a top player. And these guys of Carolina, they're top players. They got one guy under 6 foot, that's Trocheck, and he's pretty darn good. I just feel like he got pushed around last night. I thought Yossi didn't have a great game. I thought Ellis got pushed around last night, and I worry about that because he got pushed around by Dallas, he got pushed around by Winnipeg, and I'm wondering if Ryan Ellis can really play on the top pair against these kind of teams that you have to beat in the playoffs. What did you see?
Yeah, no, it's when you play in a playoff game, that separates the men from the boys, and especially with Carolina, that's a big team. They're not. The new age NHL is play fast and move the puck and not necessarily built on size, but that is a big team. And they went out there and attacked heavy on the forecheck. They didn't give our defensemen any space to make plays, and I think that's by design. I think Brind'Amour decided, all right, we're going to pressure these D, and every time Yossi was going up the ice, he didn't have one guy on him. He had two guys on him. He had the defenseman playing him, facing him, and then the back pressure coming from the back end. And it was the same with Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm. They made a point to pressure the defense. And so it was a really tough night for those guys. And those guys know it's coming to the net. They'll make plays. They'll attack from below the goal line, but it's coming to the net. And so, those guys are going to have a hard time. That's just the way the game was being played by the Canes.
John Hines, I asked him today about Johansson because we've seen Johansson play at the top of his game, and we know that he can play with anybody when he's playing at the top of his game. Last night, and even John Hines admitted this today, how that he feels like Johansson played at the top of his game for 20 minutes, but he didn't do it for the other 40. That's kind of been the book on Johansson around here, has been that maybe you don't get his best effort all the time, or his results are very, not consistent. They're very inconsistent. As a teammate, if you were a teammate with him, how would you feel, and what can his teammates do to get him to play at that level that we know he's capable of?
Well, I do think Joey's he's taken on the responsibility of playing as being a big guy. He's taken on a defensive role, so he's kind of taken that role and ran with it. Of course, everyone, with his salary and his ability to make plays, you're looking for him to get points. And I was impressed. Like the first period, I thought that line, the Jota line, looked really good. And Joey, he did a great job of holding off Dougie Hamilton and pushing him back, creating space for himself, and then making a play to Forsberg for that first goal. And that's what you're looking for from him. I just think the secret to Joey's game in the neutral zone is pushing through with speed. He's got to get his feet moving and play with pace. And then in the offensive zone, he can't just go out and protect the puck. He's got to push and push back to create that space that he can make a play, because he can dish it with the best of them. He's just got to get a little bit of separation. So whether that's coming with bodying up and pushing back, or that's moving his feet and creating that space, either way, he's got to find that space and create something out of it. I thought the first period was good and then kind of tailed off. We didn't see much of it.
Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring the new location of Belmead, TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. I thought Duchesne played well last night, Hal, and I think that at this point, you brought up Johansson's salary. We know about Duchesne's salary. We know about the hype when they signed him. We know about the unfulfilled expectations. I think it's time to put Duchesne out there. I mean, let him get out there. Again, I thought he played well last night. It was a good pass in the Hall of Goal. Let him get out there and let him go, and let's see. Because, as I said last segment, Hal, I know Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchesne can play at the top of the league at times because they've done it. I can't say that, and I love the herd line, but I can't say that about Tanner Jeannot. But I can say that about Matt Duchesne. He did it in 2019 against Tampa Bay. I feel like there's reluctance from John Hines to let Duchesne do that. How do you feel they're handling this, and what do you think Duchesne's capable of?
I need an explanation. John Hines feels reluctant to let Duchesne do what?
Well, he's not putting him out there.
Well, okay. Well, you need production, and and if you don't have production, you need to move zones. And more importantly than anything, and I think that's what John Hines is really looking for, is a north game. Get Tanner Jeannot out there. Get that beast line out there and jam it up the boards and kind of play smash mouth hockey and attack. And so I think that's exactly what they did, and Duchesne doesn't bring that mentality. And so if Duchesne doesn't bring that mentality, that's fine because he's not that type of player, but he's got to get points and score goals. And so, it was a nice pass, but I to be honest with you, I just need to see more from Duchesne. If he wants more ice time, it doesn't work the way where you just play your guy to death. You can do that until he comes around, but if he doesn't come around, then you're eating up a lot of minutes. And if you play him as a few minutes and say, all right, give us what you got, and he doesn't produce, then you're kind of stuck in a position. So I think it's a tough situation to handle for John Hines. I feel for him because I think Matt Duchesne is a lot better than what he's given us. I just don't. I've seen him try different ways to get it out of him, but he's got to show up when the big game counts, and you need him out there to do something big.
Why do you think Duchesne has been unable to do so in the 2 years he's been here?
You know what? With Duchesne, all I see is when he's on, he's able to separate. He's able to do quick cutbacks and then force plays to happen because of his speed and his escapability. And I haven't seen that too much. He's had spurts of it, but I haven't seen too much of it. In the neutral zone, if he moves his feet and he attacks with speed, he is fast. He's just needs more consistent with that. And so I don't know what the reason is, whether it's injuries that piled up and he just doesn't feel like he has that speed burst or whatever it is. But it's just you need more consistency with it, and it needs to be consistency.
Hal Gill, as always, he'll be on the call tomorrow night. Hal, appreciate you. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic, not a lot more optimistic, but a little bit more optimistic after talking to you. And, of course, I love the fact that you're presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belle Meade and TriStar Moving. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal Gill. Hal, appreciate you.
You got it. Thanks for having me, bud. Hi, Caroline.
Hey, Hal, I'm here.
Well, I'm
Hal
good.
Gill
Good to hear
joining
from
us
you
on the program. Speaking of TriStar Movers, by the way, we're going to give something away, something really good. We're giving that away next. Speaking of TriStar Movers, it's moving season, and they are my official movers. If you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar Moving a call right now. At TriStar Moving, you'll get 5-star service throughout the entire process. TriStar Moving took care of my move, and they made everything as simple as possible. I love TriStar Moving because they have a brand new storage facility, state of the art, that is out in Mount Juliet. And if you need, say, a place for all of your stuff, they're your guys. Their owners, Garrett and Robert, are true Nashvillians, and they care immensely about helping this community any way they can. So if you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar Moving a call, 615-640-1219, or visit their website at nationalmoving.org/radio. They'll give you 5% off your entire move. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219. TriStar Moving, nationalmoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you. TriStar Moving, my official movers. Stillman Company. I'm in a bad mood after the Predators loss. I'll be excited that tomorrow we'll be at Party Foul in Cool Springs, brand new location. And again, they've got a watch party tomorrow night. If you're trying to make plans where you should go watch a Preds game, that's where you should go. Party Foul in Cool Springs. And we'll be giving away a pair of tickets at the second intermission. Must be present to win. Speaking of giving things away and being in a better mood, how about giving away a pair of tickets to Kings of Leon right now?
Ooh.
Be caller 5-615-737-1025. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Kings of Leon at Ascend Amphitheater on Thursday, August 12th. Okay, it's time for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman Company.
On ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
In the month-long Caroline's Challenge, yours truly is up 1-0, and we are tied 3-1 after one day. Caroline Fenton, you hit the Mets on the money line.
Yep.
I was banking on Max Fried. He left the game with an injury. That one kind of sunk me a little bit. I went with the Braves on the money line. You went with the Caps on the money line last night. Bruins in overtime. I am now 2-0 in overtime.
Just when I thought, okay, no. Wait, I thought I took the Bruins yesterday. Did I not?
I wrote down Bruins money line on my side.
How do I know that you're not shafting me over there?
Because, look, it's already...
You can't be the judge and the scorekeeper.
You start writing it down.
Fine, I guess I very much so could do that. Yeah. That might become my new Buffalo Sabres. I may just have to stay away from that matchup.
We both got the Canes money line and Canes minus 1.5. We took a loss on the on the under. We both took the under at 5.
Right.
And the Canes themselves scored 5. Okay. What is on the docket today, Carolines?
We've got a Central Division matchup tonight, Tampa, Florida.
Great game one.
If you didn't watch game one, I highly recommend you go back and watch the highlights because, oh my gosh, talk about a fiscal game. That was a crazy game. So I am going to take Panthers plus 1.5. I think that this game is going to be close yet again. Both of these teams have so much offensive talent. They are so evenly matched. I'm also going to take the over 6.5, which is kind of a high over. But like I said, both these teams are just absolutely ridiculous offensively. Florida's averaging 7 assists a game in the last 10 games, so they've got some serious scoring depth. And I feel like the Panthers possibly could win. I'm just not comfortable enough taking the money line, but I do think it's going to be close enough. And if the Panthers can keep the Lightning off the power play, then the Panthers have a serious shot at this series.
So I'm going to take Tampa minus 1.5, and I'm also going to take the over. Nikita Kucherov made his return for the Panthers in Game 1, and he was phenomenal with 2 goals. I think, it's funny. Without Kucherov and with the Lightning, I don't say kind of coasting, but Florida and Tampa are almost the exact same. Like they were the exact same during the regular season. Well, now Nikita Kucherov is back. And Tampa's got the better goaltender in Andre Vasilevsky. I think Tampa wins. I think this is a 5-game series. I think Tampa's going to win it in 5. I'll take Tampa minus 1.5, and I'll take the over. And you know what? I am rooting for the Panthers tonight because I think this has all of the makings of a very explosive, exciting, 6 or 7 game series. And if the Panthers lose tonight, then I feel like it's probably going to be a pretty easy cakewalk for Tampa. Yeah. But that's my heart going with the Panthers. My head says Tampa. I'll take Tampa minus 1.5 and the over.
We also have a message that says Caroline took the Bruins yesterday. Jared took the Caps and trashed Tuukka Rask.
Oh, he does suck.
That does sound on brand.
That does sound like me. So I guess I just wrote it down wrong. Okay, so then you're up. Woo-hoo. You're up 3-1, and I am 2-2.
Woohoo! That feels good.
There you go. We'll see after today. What's next?
Cardinals, Pirates. I'm going to take the Cardinals money line. The Pirates offense is just thumbs down, bad, trash, overall not great. The Cardinals are 3-0 this year against the Pirates. They swept them in a series earlier this month. The Pirates rank last in runs scored per game in the league. They're hitting 3, 4, 5 runs scored per game, and they've hit the fewest home runs with 26 among all 30 major league putting out JT Brubaker in.
Who?
JT Brubaker.
Who? I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, well, he's got a 2.58 ERA in 7 starts.
I think the Pirates' money line is probably a pretty nice play.
You think?
Well, not in terms of it being successful, but in terms of the odds.
In terms of the odds?
Yeah.
I'll look at the odds.
Give me Pirates on the money line.
Oh.
I got a feeling. If not, I'm giving away week 2. But I got a feeling. Give me Pirates on the money line.
Plus 110.
That's it?
That's it. Cardinals are minus 130 on the money line. I think that's worth it. I think that's a pretty good value.
Give me the Pirates on the money line. I think this is a homer pick coming from you, and I will take
not a
advantage
homer
of the homer
pick.
pick. I will go with the Pirates on the money line. Give me the Buccos. Going with the Pirates.
How many times have you taken the Braves?
I picked against them last week. And I picked against them last week on Tuesday and Thursday. No, Tuesday and Friday.
You have picked them before. This is not a homer pick.
I picked them yesterday, but I pick against them consistently.
There are no alliances when it comes to my wallet. I'll make money whether it's my team or not.
A lot of people said that, and it's how we've ended up where we are today.
I also have a correction from our Carolines yesterday. Picked the Grizzlies money line yesterday. I was speaking as if the game was on Monday night. It's actually on Wednesday night. So just keep that in your back pocket for Wednesday night.
I have
the Grizzlies money line. But tonight, Wizards, Celtics. I'm going to take the Wizards money line. This is a play-in tournament game, and you would think that the Celtics could show up, and knowing that the stakes are so high, I just don't think that they have the depth and the talent to do so. Jaylen Brown is out for the season, and they've been kind of rough all year with him, so without them, I don't see them improving at all. Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook are a force to be reckoned with for the Wizards, and I don't think that Jason Tatum can handle that alone. Celtics have lost 10 of their last 15, and they haven't beaten a team with a winning record since April 22nd, and that was with Jaylen Brown. So taking the Wizards tonight with the money line.
I'm going to take the Celtics on the money line. I don't trust Russell Westbrook, and I got one.
What do you mean you don't trust Russell Westbrook?
He doesn't win big games. Never has, never will. And I've got one tonight, West first round, game 2. I'm taking the Vegas Golden Knights minus 170. I think they get it done. There's no way they go down 0-2 to Minnesota.
I'll take the Wild.
Okay. All right. Those are Carolines. That's it for us. We are out of here. We are back tomorrow at 2 Preds Insiders. Full breakdown of game 1. Get you ready for game 2. That's next. We'll see you tomorrow, too, ESPN.